This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. All right, guys. So today's topics are like this one. We will try to cover this way. First of all, we'll discuss about the Kubernetes networking. In that, we will discuss about what is a service, node port, load balancer, cluster IP address, and then we'll go back to the deployment again, and there we'll discuss about deployment strategy. In that, also we'll cover uh, how deployment looks like, how we take care of replica sets and everything quickly. And we are going to deploy two strategies here: recreate and rolling update. Blue, green, and canary deployment will be shown practically to you when I will be discussing about the ingress controller. Then we'll see about deployment rollout, rollback, how to pause the rollback, how to pause the rollout, and how to go for the revisions. And we'll also today's topic is also deployment auto scaling using HPA. So these are the agenda for today's session. Let's move ahead, guys, with the Kubernetes networking. So everybody is aware about one thing we have seen in the Docker, right? So when we were discussing about the Docker networking, so in that case, we were discussing about how the containers talk to each other when they are on same node, right? If you remember that diagram, guys, I have drawn that diagram, which shows that there is a bridge, and for that bridge we had two containers, and there was a tab created, right? The similar stuff is here also. If you have, if you want to discuss about the how the pod to pod communication happens, that we would like to discuss, right? So all pods can communicate. I'm going to show you detailing, guys, but let's go through the slides quickly. All pods can communicate with all other pods without using NAT. That is network address translation. It doesn't have to have, because they are on the same namespace. All nodes can communicate with all pods without NAT. So please keep this in mind. In the cluster, how many worker nodes are there? All the pods which are there on the worker nodes will talk to each other. So all the even though if they are in the different namespace, they will be able to talk to each other. Please note down this statement. Okay, but only visibility is not there. So containers within a pod all have the same IP address and port space assigned through the network namespace using assigned to the pod. We'll discuss about this. What is the meaning of it, right? They can find each other via local host, right? So in one pod, if you have multiple containers, how they will talk to each other? That is what the meaning of the statement is. So in pod, if you have multiple containers, they can use the local host because they're using the same IP address. And if the containers are having a different ports, they can communicate with each other on the localhost IP address colon port number. So that is the way they can talk to each other if in the same container, right? They can find each other via localhost since they reside in the same namespace. So you can see here, guys, this is my worker node or virtual machine, right? You can say that this is my worker node, and each worker node has the LAN card. Let's say this is a E0 LAN card, and there are two pods here, pod 1 and pod 2. So how the container A will talk to container B, or container B will talk to container A? Since pod is having a IP address, only single IP address is there, and there is no IP address to the containers, then the containers, the service which is inside the container A and service which is there inside the container B will be able to talk to each other by using a local host, that is 127.0.0.1 IP address colon port number of the container, right? So if the service inside this controller is running on the port number 80, and it is running a container and it is running on the port number, let's say 81, so they can talk to each other by using the port number 80 or port number 81. Similarly here also, if there are three containers, they will talk to each other by using a local host, right? So containers within a pod all have the same IP address and port space assigned through the network namespace assigned to the pod. They can find each other via local host since they reside in the same namespace, right?
But
So
Ramesh,
this,
this is Vivek. Do you still need a CNI on top of that, right? Before communication within pods
See, basically, CNI is required when we are talking from the one node to another node,
with one port to
right?
another
So
port. You don't need a CNI when you need to communicate with one port to another port.
no, in the same worker node, not required, because there is a kube proxy which will take care of the communication inside this.
I thought
Uh,
that is
one-
the requirement when you need to install your kubeadm in it, and after that you need to have a CNI to have a backbone.
no. So if you have another worker node here, and if the pod from this worker node wants to talk to this worker node, sorry, pod inside this worker node, then you need a CNI. Before that, it is not required.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so guys, please, if I just request all of you to please hold on the questions, because that will otherwise everybody will have some questions and it will get disturbed. Try to understand. Okay, thank you guys. So this is something which is pod to pod communication happens, guys. So uh, now moving ahead, I will be showing you this, guys. So consider that. So pod to pod networking, you can see this is the diagram which will I have just now explained you, right? So this is basically if you see how the pod networking is placed in the same worker node, in one worker node, similar like our this one Docker, which I have explained you when I explained the containerization, then container networking. So this is your LAN card of the worker node. There is a breach got created, right? And everybody understood what is a breach now. And this is your pod, two pods are there. So there will be two LAN cards. Let's say there are two IP addresses inside this one, right? So tapping will get created here. You can see this is a tap actually. This tap is respective to this tap is respective to this particular pod. When this particular pod want to talk to this particular, so how the communication will flow? Like this one, through bridge this way. This is the pattern in which we'll get. So I think there is a nice let me just show you. So you can see this is the flow. Very nice animation has been created here. You can see here, guys, that how the traffic goes from one pod to another pod when they are on the same node. So you can see here, guys. I'm so sorry. 1 second. I'm just trying to understand this. Okay. So now you can see here. This is going to the specifically from the is each zero of the pod. So from the pod, the traffic will initiate it. It will go to the tap, then it will go to the bridge. From the bridge, it will go to the this ETH1. This is again a tap, and this is again a LAN card of the pod. You can say the container of the pod. So this is a pod namespace. So this way the communication will happen. Pod to pod communication in the same node. That is important, guys. But what will happen if they are in the across nodes? So every pod has a real IP address, and each pod communicates with other pods using the IP address. And now here is the CNI comes into picture. So when we have the multiple worker nodes, then how the communication will take place? So the communication will take place through the additional networking layer called as a CNI. You can say whichever you use, right? So the packet will start from here. So this is the way the packet will flow, guys, right? So if this pod want to talk to this pod, if this pod want to talk to this pod here, then it will go through this E0 tap bridge, then outside network, and then this through the CNI, it will go like this one. So this is the way communication happens. So during this pod, you don't require a CNI, but when you across the pod, when you want when one pod want to talk to another pod, definitely you require a communication, right? So CNI is required that time. Now, let me show you by deploying the two pods how they are talking to each other, and as well as I will try to show you some networking parameters as well. This is important, guys, to understand from the networking perspective. And then we'll discuss about what is the issue, why the service is required. Because consider there are hundreds and thousands of pods are running in the worker node. How you are going to keep the uh, IP addressing and DNS mechanism? Okay, how you are going to maintain it? Thousands of IP addresses are there. In one application might have 100 pods. Another application might have 100 pods, and each pod has a different IP addresses. And if the pod gets deleted and it gets recreated, again the new IP address comes. So IP addresses of the pods are not consistent, they are not persistent. Then how to manage all this networking stuff? That time comes into picture. Right, so before that, I would like to show you one demonstration. If you want to access the pods from one machine to another machine, how do you access it? Is it pinging or not? Let me show you quickly, guys. Then we'll go for the demonstration about the service. kubectl, I would like to create a pod, run pod. So this is the name of the pod, pod1. And I'm going to use the image called as, let's say, httpd. So it is creating the pod. It has created a pod. Now we can see here kubectl get pods -o wide. So guys, it has got an IP address called as a 10.32.0.2 worker 2. But what actually happened on the worker node now, that is need to understand. So you can see here brctl show there are two bridges here now. One is the Docker 0 bridge and another one is a Vue bridge. Right? So now these bridges are used. So when you are talking about the container is talking on the same node or on the same node, or when the container pod is talking on the same pod in one node, that time this Docker 0 will come into picture, right? But when you are talking from one pod to another pod, this Vue network will come into picture. Now, if you see, guys, the IP address, I'm showing you the IP address show command, and now look at this. Just now we have created one container, right? So you might be seeing this kind of network gets created, and this is a tab actually gets created. You can see 8 number tab got created. There is another tab got created, 9 number tab is there, 10 number tab is there, right? Now let's create one more pod. So there are 10 tabs are there. Let me show you that whether it creates another tab or not when you create a pod. So on worker 2 it might have created, because on worker 2 if I go there, okay, let me just show you the worker 2 also. SSH worker 2. No, right, it should be Ubuntu. Okay guys, I think I will get access now. Yes, so I am inside this worker 2. Actually pod has got created inside the worker 2, right? So now see the IP address of it. You will be seeing the brctl show command, and you should be able to see that now this Vue network is there, and it has got this bridge created interfaces, and this is the tab got created now. So this is the name of the interface, not bridge. Actually the name of the bridge is this one. These are the tabs got created. Now let's me deploy. So now there are two tabs are there here. Let me go back to the my machine here, worker master node, and create one more pod. Let me create one more pod called as a pod 2. Now where this, let me create one more pod, that is pod, let's do with this one only. And it has created on the worker 2 only. So now I need to go to the worker 2 and see. Earlier there were two tabs were that, right? So now let's see that whether it has created one more tab or not. brctl show. So can you see one more tab has created? All right guys, so this is very important to understand. So let me draw the diagram here to explain you what actually I want to say. Okay, so consider this is my pod. So let's say this is my worker 2 node, and this worker 2 node has a LAN card. So there is a bridge got created here. When we install the Docker and Vue network, it got a bridge here. So let me show you here with diagram. This is a bridge got created. So whenever from the master node you try to deploy the pod or deployments, pods will get created. Now consider there is a pod here. So once a pod gets created, before getting while creating the pod, it creates the tap here. This is called as the tap. I use the tap. This is a logical entity. This is a tap, right? Now, please mute, guys. So now this is a pod, and inside that pod there is a container. So similar like what we did in the Docker, when you want to talk to this container, the traffic will flow from this LAN card. This is actually LAN card, guys. Let's say ETH0. And then it will go from this ETH0 to the tap. It is a tap is a logical, again, a networking entity. And then there will be again one more LAN card here. It will talk to this one. And if you have another, if you have, please mute, guys, some noise is coming. This is another pod. When you try to again create one more pod here through the master server, let's say it choose the one more same worker node to deploy the pod. Then it will have a container inside this. Okay, there will be LAN card to this pod. The tap will get created, and this tap will talk to the bridge. So now if you want to communicate with this container or this pod, how the traffic will flow from this bridge to this tap, from the tap to the container. Right, guys? So now if let's say the another when you try to deploy the one more worker, one more pod from this place, and let's say it choose the worker one, the same structure will get created. There will be pod here. Inside the pod there will be container, right? It will have a LAN card here. This LAN card, when you create a container pod, automatically tap will get created. This tap will talk to the bridge, and this bridge will talk to the LAN card below. Okay, but if at all you want, this is your bridge. Okay, guys, and if at all this pod or container wants to talk to this particular container, then how it will talk to? So that time your CNI will come into picture. So this container will start traffic. It will come to the tap. It will go to the bridge from this LAN card, or there is a view bridge is there. One more bridge is there, right? This bridge is there. So through this bridge, here also one more bridge is there. So this will talk to this bridge. Of course, it requires some LAN card. From this LAN card, it will go to this LAN card. If it is using this is a view bridge or this is a view bridge, accordingly it will select, and then it will go to the container. You need to have the CNI for that one, otherwise it will not work. You have to be very clear about this one. So when the pods inside one worker nodes talk to each other, they are using the local bridge communication. And when the pods across the bridge, they are across the worker node, they are trying to talk to each other. They are using a view network called as CNI. All right. So, and what is the job of the kubeproxy here? Kubeproxy is used to maintain the networking part, including IP tables and everything. All right. So that is very important. Then why the service is required? What is the service actually? Service is nothing but again a abstraction, or you can say the abstraction of the layer, networking layer. Why it is required? The reason it is required is, let me just remove these guys to explain you better. Okay. So think about the situation that, guys, you have hundreds of pods here. Hundreds of pods are there on the worker one, and hundreds of pods are running on the worker two. Each has a different IP addresses. So maintaining them, at the worker node level, it is maintained by the kube proxy. There is no issue. But how the user will access it from the outside? Think about the situation, guys. Now that I have this pod. I have two pods got created on my machine now. Kubectl get pods -oy. and I have these IP addresses. If I want to access the pod, what I can do, I can just curl it from this machine, and I'm getting the output. If I am trying to curl this one, I'm getting the output. Why I am getting output? Because see, the IP address of is the 10.32.0.2. This is in the same network like your pod network or whatever the view network is giving. You have that networking. If you see the IP addresses of the breaches also, as you'll try to see that view network has 10.30.0.0 and Docker has 17.17.0.1. So basically, this is the IP address is available, and that is the reason we are able to access, we are able to talk to the IP addresses of the pods from the worker nodes. The problem here is that how I can access it from the outside, and for that purpose, we need to have the service. How to check? How to check whether we are able to connect from this pod to this pod or not? From my master machine, I am able to connect because that networking is there. But if at all I want to access my 3-number pod, that is a 3-number IP address from the 2-number IP address, how this should happen? So let me log in into this one, kubectl execute -it, and what is the name of the pod? Let's say pod 1, and I'm using a bash. Okay, I am inside the pod called as a pod 1. Okay, now I want to communicate with this one. Is it going to ping 10.13.30.0.3? Oh, a ping is not found. apt update. So inside pod also I need to update that one, otherwise it will not work. And apt install ip-utils -y.
It is IP utils dash ping.
Yeah, correct. ip-utils-ping, correct. Thank you for that. Yeah, it is now installing. Now I can ping it. Now see, it is pinging. So even though any pod gets created, and if you want to ping, every pod will get pinged to each other because of this networking strategy. Problem here is not that. Problem is that how to access it from outside. Now I want to access this website from the outside. How do I access it? And that is the time we need to use a service. So service is the abstraction. The problem service is the abstraction of the networking layer, which is used for external user to access it, as well as through the cluster it can be accessed. Now the point here is, let me show you that how actually it happens, guys. So this is my pod, right? And inside this pod there is a container. Now this pod has IP address, and its range is something in the range of 10 dot something, right, guys? We have seen that one, 10.38.0.0, or maybe /24. This is the range there, this IP address of the pod it has got. The service which is running on this pod or inside the container, let's say it is running on the port number 80. So the service inside this pod is running on the port number 80. It is called as a container port or target port. It is called as a target port because in the Kubernetes language it is called as the target port. And let's say that service whatever the application is running inside this container is running on the target port called as 80. Okay, now how to communicate this one? Because I have a LAN card here. This LAN card is sitting here. This is my worker one's LAN card here. This is LAN card E0, let's say. Now its IP address is different. Its IP address is completely different. It is something in the range of 172, or maybe a different range is there. From this LAN card, let's say this is in the range of 170.0. Maybe 0.0/24 network. Now the IP address of this LAN card and this particular IP address you are able to ping because there is a bridging and everything is there. We have just seen that. But consider that this is your laptop or maybe a customer laptop, and they want to access the application which is running inside this particular container. Okay, so this particular laptop or external network is able to talk to this particular IP address of the worker node. But how they will talk to inside the IP address of the container or pod? Okay, so now what you need to do here is something like this, guys. You have to create a service. So when you create a service, what happens? Let's say this is the service created here. This is a, sorry guys. So this is a service created. Let's say this is a logical service. This is called as a service. And for the service also there is a port, and that is called as a port. Normally, the port of the service and the target port of the container is kept same. Normally, it is if you don't define it, it will be same. Now, this port and this port will talk to each other always. Now, how we can call this service from the outside now? So now the port of the service, if you want to talk to that particular port, then you have to use the port number of this particular LAN card, and they are in the range of 30,000 to 30,000, something 767. And these ports are called as, since these are the ports of the node worker node, these ports are called as a node port. So node port. So whenever you try to talk to whenever you want to access the website or applications which is running inside this container or pod, then what you need to do, guys, you have to access the IP address of this particular LAN card, colon, the port number which you have used and mapped with this particular service port. So service port will get mapped from this location to this location. So whenever any user is trying to access the pod's website, then you have to give 717.17. Let's say 0.2 is the IP address of the LAN card, colon, the port number. Let's say 30 node port number 32,001. So what will happen? This 32,001 number port will talk to the service port. It is actually mapped here, service port, and this service port will get mapped to the target port. Now you will have a question that how this mapping is done, what actually happens. So there is a IP table rule gets created. So who does that IP tables rules? The IP table rule is written by the kube proxy which is running inside this particular worker node. So it will forward the traffic from the 30,001 to port number of the service. This is actually internal communication happens, right? So this is called as a node port type service. Now you might be thinking that, guys, what will happen if this particular pod, you may have a multiple pods running, right? This is not only one single pod. You may have a same application might be having a multiple pods. Then what will happen? Let's say this is another location, the same pod is there. Your application has two pods, and one is running on this one, another is running on this one. Then what will happen if this person is trying to access on the port number, how it will talk to this pod and how it will talk to this pod. So guys, what happens, this service port is service is something called as a namespace level namespace level entity. Okay, so when I create a name service, it gets spread across this entire cluster. Now, if any user want to access the containers pod, containers website, then how the access will be done? Okay, guys, so let me show you here how the communication will happen. The communication will happen from this IP address to laptop. You will fire this command. Then from this command, it will go to the service, and then service will distribute it will redirect the traffic from this pod as well as this pod. So service has the endpoints, and which endpoints are there? IP addresses of the pods. So depending on the round robin method, or maybe a load, this service is defined. Normally it is in the form of the round robin. So whatever the way is there, it will distribute the packets. It will distribute the traffic to the containers. So later when you found that you have another container got created, right, guys? It is on this one. Another pod gets created, and it is now here. Then the service will just add one more endpoint here. So whenever you are trying to, this is a browser actually, right? This is the browser of the laptop, and you are trying to type this URL of, this is the URL, right? This is the IP address of the laptop, and colon 32001. So this is the port of the LAN port of the worker node, and not the your laptop's port. Laptop can come with any port. Source port can be anything. The destination is this port. From this port, it will go to this service, and from this service, it will be distributed. And the distribution is done by using the IP tables. Please keep this in mind. So whenever I create any service, IP tables get created. So service ports talk to the target port, right, guys? So there will be target port, guys. For whenever you create the container, there will be target port, right? That port will be there, container port will be there, or you can say the pod port, let's say, for that time being. So all these are the target ports. So service will talk to this particular target ports. So can you say that this particular service is doing something called as a load balancing? Yes, it is distributing the traffic. It is kind of load balancer only. The service type which I am explaining you right now is a node port service. I hope that this is clear to all of you. Now I want to show you practically how this is to be done. How you can access it from the outside so that the clarity will come. Then I will show you how to create the load balancer. Then I will show you how to create the cluster IP addresses. So guys, just to revise, this is the port of the node. This is the port of the service. And the port which you see here, target port, is 80. It is the pod port. So pod port or container port is same here, guys. Okay, now let's move ahead, and I will show you this practically how to access this. So I am going to my master node, kubectl get pods -o wide. There are two pods running, and their IP addresses are this one. But do you have any kubectl get service? So there is no service inside the K21 namespace. So I want to create a service here. So how to create a service? Very simple, guys. I'm going to use a imperative way, kubectl expose. This is the command which you need to use. Expose pod1, and what is the name you want to give to the service? You can give the name, or it will take the name. Let's say I will give the name as a pod1 only. and what type of the service you want to open. Let's say I want to use node port. And what is your target port? That is, I am talking about the container port, guys. Target port here. I think it is small, and it is a 80. Is it capital P? What is the mistake I'm doing here?
Yeah, there will be hyphen between target and port.
Oh, it is like this, right? Okay. No, okay. So, I got it. Now I got it. Yeah, a lot of commands are firing, but some commands gets confused. Oh,
No pods, only pod.
no, there is a wrong thing. kubectl expose, array, kubectl expose.
Ramesh, the port is missing from the command. Port, then target port. I think that's why he's saying couldn't find the port.
1 second, pods, pod 1, hyphen type, node port. Let me use, guys, help command. Yeah, you can see here kubectl expose port, whatever the port you want to use, and you can use the target port also here. Either you can use a port or you can use a target port. Both will work. Okay, so let me see here. Let me use a port is equal to 80.
Uh,
Yeah,
Ramesh,
capital P,
service
capital.
name. A service name is
Yeah,
not
now it has got
there.
created. Yeah, guys. Yeah, now let me show you one more way. I have port 2 also, right? And can you use something called as target port here? Target port. Is it the same thing? Yeah, number or name, target port. So this is not picking up. And can I use port is equal to 80? Yeah, it is used. So you need to specify the minimum requirement is target port is a container port or pod port, but important is that you need to specify the service port. So this is a, if you don't specify the service port, then it will not understand only target port, right? So target port is a container port, guys. Please keep this in mind. And this is the service port. So you need to specify. It is a mandatory to specify the port number of the service. Okay. Now let's see that kubectl get service. Now you can see that there are two services got created, pod 1. If you don't specify the name, automatically this will take the name of the pod here only. I'm just showing you for the right now for the pod. I'm going to show you for the deployment as well, guys. Don't worry about it. So now I want to see the website which is running inside the pod because I got the node port here, 30,733. For the pod 2, I got this node port. Okay. So now, so internally, forget about the outside. Internally, can we use this one kubectl? Can I curl this pod by using not IP address of the pod, but using the cluster IP address of this one? It is working, guys. So can I use this IP address to get the contents from the my worker pod 2? Yes, it is coming up. So internally, I can use this cluster IP to access it. Now I access the pod, but this IP is also not accessible from the outside. It is just within the cluster. That is called as a cluster IP. Cluster IP is not accessible from the outside. Now I want to access this particular pod from the outside. So let me go here. What is the IP address of the master? This is the IP address. Let me put this IP address colon. It is 3733 port number, right? 3733, and it works. This is my pod 1, and what is the another pod? It is 32718. So I'm specifying this node port, guys, from the outside. You can also access this, guys. If you wish to access it, you can access this also. This is in my Azure network. If you want to access it, you can access it. Let me give it to you. No, this is to everyone. It should go to everyone. How to do that? So can somebody just say hi to me? I think I should be able to.
Ramesh, to send it to everyone, change send to everyone option, send to change my name to everyone in send to left side of your send button.
Okay, this is below actually. It is hiding somewhere, right?
Yeah, I tried with the IP, Ramesh. It worked.
Yeah, it worked, na? Okay, cool, guys. Thank you. Yush, why it is not changing? Okay, I need to type something right here. Just sorry, guys. Now I need to change it here. Why it is not changing? All right, let's not focus on this one. Okay, guys, please try out that. You can send the IP address. Yes, Linto. Thank you very much for everyone. Yeah, thank you. Good. So you can use this IP address, right? So you can access this from your machine as well. So I have exposed the pod to the outside world, guys, using the node port. Can I do it for my deployment? So how do I deploy it? kubectl create deployment called as so I don't need to specify this app1, and I'm going to use image is equal to, let's say, nginx. What is the mistake I am doing today? kubectl create deployment app1, and I'm going to use the image called as nginx, right, guys? All right, it is created now. See, so I have now how many kubectl get pods or kubectl get deployment? Okay, so now you can see this is app1. One pod is running. Let me scale up this kubectl scale. Last time we have seen this kubectl scale deployment slash app1, and I'm going to create a 2 replicas of it. So let me create 3 replicas. kubectl get deployment. Now you can see that it has a 3 applications. Same to same pods are there, guys, right? No changes are there. Now I want to access this from outside. kubectl get pods. They are different IP addresses. -o wide. There are different IP addresses now. See, all of them are having a different IP addresses. Now we want to expose this application from the outside using a node port type. Now let me show you this. This is very important exercise, guys. Please see. kubectl expose deployment called as app1, and here I want to give the name. I can give the name to this one as app1, and type is equal to node port, and I need to give the port that is important is equal to, what is the port I want to specify? Let's say I want to specify port 80. Let me use the target port also, is equal to 80. Normally it should be same. And can I use node port here? Okay, let's take a default for the time being. kubectl get svc, or you can use service. Both commands are same, guys. You can either use svc or service. Shortcut of the service is svc. Now you can see this app one has been now exposed from the outside. So on the port number 31977, I can access this Nginx application from the outside. So this is my 31977. So it is coming. Now when I refresh, from which node, from which particular pod it is coming, we are not able to understand. So for that purpose, what I will do to show you the demonstration of the load balancing, this service is doing the load balancing. I would like to show you that by changing the contents of the index.html page of the two pods. So how do I do that? kubectl execute. I am going inside the pod by using this command -it, and the pod name, let's say pod name is, or I can use app. What is the pod name here? Yeah, this is the pod name, bash. So I am inside the pod now. I will go to the location where, since it is the Nginx pod, I know the location where is the index.html page. So I'm writing here echo, I like to have something cold today. Let's say this is I'm changing into one index.html page. So this is my first pod. Okay, in the second pod, let me change let me change the page. Let me access the pod. Let me go here, user share Nginx HTML, and here you can see there is index.html, and inside this let me change something. I would like to have something hot today, let's say. Okay guys, that's it. So you have one as a default page and another one has a cold, and third one is having hot. So now let's go ahead and see. You can also try, guys, from your machine. The port number is 31977. I'm just refreshing this page. See, can you see? I like to have something cold today. So it is coming from now. Sometime it will go to the one pod, sometime it will go to the another pod. Why it is coming only on the same pod? Is it a caching? It should not cache. Let me take you to the Google.
I'm getting the hot one.
You are getting hot one, and cold one also?
No, I'm not getting the cold.
I'm getting the hot one. Wow.
So I got cold.
How did you do that? We should ask you to replay it again.
No, but this should show me all, right? Look at this. Yeah, it is actually sticking here. The session
Screen sharing stopped?
Yeah, screen sharing is stopped.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you see here now? Thank you, guys. So this is, I think, some caching. It should actually change. Sometime it should go to the hot, sometime it should go to the cold. Is it somebody is getting like that?
Can you clear your cookies and try it?
I think, or incognito, I think it will work. Maybe. Let me copy this.
Maybe you can stop the service on one of the pod, HTTP service or Nginx service. It should automatically go to on.
No, it should go actually. It should go.
No,
now I'm getting this one.
No, maybe by default the service might be source IP persistent.
No.
Now this is going to pod 3, I guess, Ramesh. That's why welcome to Nginx.
It is going to pod 3, and let's say on some other page, let me try out. Sometimes it is caching actually. That problem is the caching problem.
You can open another browser if you have different browser and check. I'm going to check it now.
I'm going to do that
Ramesh,
now.
I am getting the 3.
You are getting 3? Superb.
Yeah.
I've opened 2 different browsers. I'm getting 2 different responses, so it's fine.
Yeah. Now see here, I got cold. All right, guys. You got it right. What I was trying to say.
Yeah.
It is service is actually load balancing it. Cool. Did you understood what is the service now, and specifically node port type?
Ramesh, I have a small question.
Yeah. Now I will take questions, guys, about this one. Otherwise, there will be a long list of the questions. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ramesh. So we can create deployments and services using YAML file also, right? kubectl create -f. So when we create a deployment or a service using the command line, like how you are doing, will that in turn create an YAML file somewhere in the cluster, somewhere in the master node?
etcd.
etcd.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 That's what.
So it will get stored there. All the manifest will get stored there.
Okay. Sure.
Ramesh, I have a question. I mean, when you initially in the first networking class about the Docker, right? So in that class also, you were able to access the content in the pod or the container from outside using the curl command, right? And at that time, we have not created any service. You
No,
remember?
that time, yes, correct. But the thing was that that time we have there was no service there, but we were able to access it from the outside, right, by using the bridging. We have done the bridging to get it outside from the outside in the
Right
same
now
LAN,
also,
but it is in the same LAN, same LAN.
Same LAN. So right now also, okay, we were not trying to access the data from a different port in the different worker node. Initially we attempted to access the data from worker node 1 from outside. Okay, so if you want to do that, then service is not needed, right? You can always do that. But then if you want to access the data from a different pod which is hosted on a different worker node, then you may need that, right?
Now do you know what I have used here? I have used the IP address of the master server to access this application. I can use any IP address now for that matter. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, Piyush, sorry, I forgot to take that one. Let me take, guys, questions from the chat box. I'm so sorry.
Ramesh, I've shared on the chat on the last which are not answered. So maybe you can start from here.
Thank you very much. How to make it large? Okay, I want to see this question a little bit. Okay. Piyush, whatever the questions you have sent, I think I need to check, right? Ideally, there should be only one bridge, right? But I can see there are 2 bridges. What about the second bridge view? Have you created manually or it got created automatically? This is a question from Piyush, right? Yes, someone. See, basically, when we install the Docker, that time Docker bridge get created. That you understood, good. But do you remember that we have deployed the view network, kubectl apply -f, and that big command was there, right? And when we deploy the view network CNI inside the master inside the cluster, automatically it creates the bridge network on every worker node as well as master node. So it is not created by manually by me.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Master to worker or worker to another worker is via CNI bridge only, right? And only pods on same node will use a Docker 0. They will use, basically, I'll tell you one thing. There is a bridge, there are 2 bridges, Docker and view 0, right? So you need to have some bridge over there to communicate. Otherwise, you will not be able to communicate either view or either Docker. Why Docker? Why Docker is required there? Because you have a container inside that.
Okay, thank you.
And Vim is also required. Yes. How does each pod gets the IP address assigned by? Can you explain in detail? So this question is something like that. How does each pod gets the IP addresses? So there is a whenever we define the CIDR while creating a kubeadmin command, or whenever you are trying to if you are not defined, then it takes it automatically. And there is a kube proxy. This kube proxy has the job of assigning the IP addresses to every pod. So whenever you are trying to spin up a new pod, that time kube proxy. So kube proxy has a DSCP combination inside it, as well as it has a IP address mechanism you can say mechanism of generating the IP addresses by using the DSCP, and then it will give the IP addresses to the pod. So kube proxy does that job. Why did you
my question. Sorry, for the IP address, that was my question. So if I have 100 pods or 1,000, so how that things work? The only thing is like kube proxy will take care. You're telling fine, but again to give the other information, if I want as a networking networking guy, what is the range I need to give? That part I was not sure. Like based on number of pods or.
No, I will tell you one thing that we need to create a custom resource for that one, for what you are talking right now. If you want to use the after creating the cluster, if you want to change the IP address mechanism, you need to define the custom. You have to create a custom resource for that one. Okay. Another important thing is that if you want to specify the pod CIDR while creating the cluster itself, you can define in the kubeadmin command only. So if you specify that kubeadm API server and the pod CIDR, automatically whenever the pods will get created, that will get created inside the in that range, from that range only. And another important thing is that you should not the network engineer should not think about the pod IP address mechanism. They should think about the service IP addresses.
So, so if I had to give the CIDR range, how do I decide? Like, that /23, like that. So that part was confusing.
Yeah, that is a very good question. I'll tell you one thing. How many pods are going to get deployed on your cluster? Let's say you have 1,000 pods. So if you want 1,000 pods, then which CIDR should be used? Let's take a simple example. If you want 254 IP addresses in your cluster, what subnet you will use? /24?
Yeah, /24, yeah.
Right, that is, there are 8 zeros, so 2 raised to 8 is equal to 256 minus 2, that means 254 IP addresses can be used, right? Now, if you want 512, you will use /23. If you want 1024, you will use /22. Are you getting it? And if you want more than that, let's say you want 2048, then it is 2 raised to 10. That is 2 raised to 10 is 2 raised to 12. That is a 4096, if I'm not wrong, 4098. What I'm talking about, guys, these numbers, how these numbers are coming, because you are you know about it, that when 255.255.255.0 you are typing, there are 8 zeros at the end. So if you do 2 raised to 8, it is 256 minus 2, that is 254 IP addresses can be used. So if you want to use the, let's say, 1,000 pods, if you want to create 1,000 pods, you have to think about /20 network or /22 maybe. Yeah, /20, sorry. If you are thinking that there will be 5,000 pods, then you have to consider about 8192, that is coming around, let's say 2 raised to 10, 2 raised to 12 or something like that it will come. That will be /20 network. That we have to calculate. I hope that is clear now.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically, we have to forecast how many pods will be there. And in case you are not able to forecast, give the /16. If you are using /16, that means limit is 65,536. 2 raised to 16.
So that's a max one, right?
No, you can go up to 1. You can go up to 2 raised to 31, 2 billion IP addresses.
Oh. But how do I know, like, max number of pods, and then that is a different exercise
No,
all together?
that we have to define, discuss about how many pods will be created inside the cluster. No, depends on the application. Depends on the how many applications you are going to do. That is a capacity planning. Are you getting it? Yes,
Yeah.
that is capacity planning. So I have discussed, I think last time also you asked about the how many pods, how to calculate this one. So I think in the cluster maintenance, I'm creating one document for all of you guys. Whenever you are deploying a cluster, what are the parameters you should consider while creating a cluster? How many IP addresses, how many worker nodes, how to decide that, right? So it is actually long. You have to sit together with the solution architects as well as customer and discuss about their requirement, and then it comes. But what question you should ask to the customer? Okay, that type of the information I will be providing, so that you once you get that information, you will be able to develop your cluster. Okay, so don't worry, guys. I will give that.
Yeah. So can you add that, Ramesh, in this network also, the one which you explained now, right?
Yeah, sure, definitely it will be there. Don't worry.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Because that is my responsibility of when I have a cluster maintenance activity, and that activity that time I will discuss about in detail.
How will you share this information on email, or how you are going to share it?
No, I will be giving it to the Piyush. Piyush will upload it in the portal. And I will discuss that information with each and every one of you, because I want to take at least 15 to 20 minutes of session on that point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody will be understood that. Okay, don't worry. Cool. So why did you expose another port as 80 for the second port? Whose question is this? Why did you expose another port 80 for the second port? Or is it this is clear now? Okay. Anuj is asking, so will there be a tab per pod? Yes, Anuj, there will be a tab per pod. Okay. Where is the service actually deployed? On all the nodes? Yes, absolutely, on all the nodes. You write a YAML file or declare it your imperative way from the master, because you need to give that information to the API server. But it is once it is written on the API server, it will be spread across all the nodes. I hope that is clear, Anuj. Is it advisable to have replicas of services? Otherwise, is it? It is no. You can create, rather than creating replicas. Yes, you can create. You can have multiple replicas for one application. You can have multiple replicas of one service multiple times. You can have replicas of that. So multiple services can be pointing to the one application. That is sure. That is possible.
Thanks, Ramesh. Couple of things. So when you said this service is deployed on all the nodes, right?
Correct. It gets spread across. It is actually a namespace component, so it gets spread across the cluster.
Okay, perfect. And I'm sure it is advisable to have a replica of the service, because otherwise it's going to be a single point of failure.
Yeah, you can do that, and it is advisable also.
So in that case, which port number shall we be using? Because all the replica will have different ports, right?
So node port is different.
So Ramesh, when the service is spread across all the nodes, the node port will be blocked across all the nodes, right, for that service that we are using?
Yes, correct. So this is the one service, guys. Just see here. This is app one. Now it is using a port number 31977. I can create another service. Let me expose command. Yeah. And here what I will do, I will use, even if I use the same command here again, let's say I'm just using an app2 here, it will be created, but the port number will be different. So these app1 and app2, these are the both services are pointing to the same application.
But Ramesh, like in terms of load balancing, the service will be responsible for sharing the load, right? In this case, if we have two services, then which one
it will load balance it. It will load balance it.
No,
Both
means
of them
what I want to ask is like a load balancer, like it will be a one service which will try to route to two different worker node. In this case, now we have two services exposed. So which one will
Now that is the case, right? Let's say that if you want to expose the service, ideally you will not have a load balance for the services, right? Again, guys. So that is the point comes in the ingress controller and on top of the load balancer that will come again. If you have hundreds of services running in the one app, one
Okay.
cluster, how you are going to manage? Yeah.
Sorry. Are we saying we will have a load balancer sitting on top of these services?
When we have, let's say, right now what we have done, we have created a 4 services in the cluster, right? These are the 4 applications, right? And how you are going to manage these services? Okay, how you are going to distribute the load? So on the top of that, you can have an ingress controller, and on the top of that, you can have an actual load balancer coming from the cloud service provider or any service provider for that matter. So that I will discuss in detail. That is possible, but
perfect. Okay.
and another important thing is that I cannot use the DNS for the different ports, right? Can you? So I have this 31977 for the same service. I have 32611 for the same application. Rather than saying same service, it is for the same application. I cannot route this way, right? I need to keep only one service intact at one point of time. But if at all my service goes down, I should have a mechanism to immediately bring up the another service.
So ultimately what we are saying is, even though you have multiple services for load balancing purpose or to avoid that single point of failure, but then ultimately until unless you have only one service, okay, only one service will be in all the time functional, okay, which will help in routing the services from end user.
On the top of this app 1 and app 2, I should use another load balancer to spread the traffic.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, so that is load balancing will be required. Additional load balancing will be required if you want to use both the service links.
Perfect.
So
Thanks. Sorry, Ramesh, not sure if you have responded back to my last question, which is when you were showing in your example that when you try to access a service from outside, you have to give the port number of a specific node. But do we know the port number of a specific node, or ideally it will be again a load balancer?
When a customer is, this is a question, right, which I have highlighted.
Yeah.
When a customer is accessing the service, why does she have to use the port of node? In your example, no, that time you will be able to do the 80. You will be directing 80 to this 32001.
Okay.
Yeah, that you have to do the port forwarding, or you have to write the targets. You have to create the targets behind the load balancer, so that even if your customer is coming on the 443 number port or 80 port, you can direct that traffic to the 32001. That is possible.
Yeah. So ideally, customers shouldn't be aware of any node. It should be just probably aware of a load balancer and let load balancer decide which node to delegate to, right? Cool. All right. Thank you. Cheers.
We should never give the port number of your node to the outside customer.
Yeah.
Okay. So Partha Sarthi is asking, we did not install configure any load balancer. How it works from outside? Does he? No, Partha. This service itself is in the internal mechanism. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, I got the clarity because when we do actual deployment, we will have the load balancer, but currently we are just going through the master node, which actually we are going through the CNI. That's the way it is working, right?
Right. Okay. But service is doing the kind of round robin mechanism. Please keep this in understanding. Load balancer work in the three modes. One is a sticky bit, and I'm not going to discuss that, but let's just additional information: sticky bit, round robin, and cyclic mechanism. So service use the round robin.
Yeah, but this is not the real way how we deploy the production. I mean, the current whatever the way we tested now, this is not the way we implement in the production environment, right?
There will be service in the production also.
Okay.
On top of that, there will be HA proxy or ingress controller, you say. And top of that, there will be load balancer if you have hundreds of applications. We'll discuss that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Mantha, I think you got the answer of what is CIDR, right?
Yeah. Yes, Ramesh. Thank you.
Yes, correct.
Ramesh, sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure if you have, if you've gone through.
Wait 1 second. That's CIDR.
No, you write this way, na? 10.0.0.0/24. This is CIDR. Class independent, that routing mechanism is there. This is called as a CIDR. Okay.
Ramesh, so sorry to interrupt again. My last question was, so when service communicates to pod, it will be via tap again, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it will. Yes, it will be.
Perfect. Thank you.
Guys, I hope that I have answered everybody's questions. Can I move ahead?
Ramesh, I have
One question I have not. I chat.
I have
I
mentioned.
put in the chat. I have a question.
Please ask.
I have mentioned in the
Oh.
chat window. So my question is regarding the IP table. You told that there will be IP table created, right, in which all the IP address will be stored. So the question is like for each worker node, there will be a different IP table, or for all the cluster, it will have a single IP table where it will be configured and it will be routed. How is it like work?
No, it will be different for every worker node. It will be different.
Okay.
It
So
will be
in
different.
particular node, it will be having the information on that particular pod IP addresses, right? It will be storing
Right.
it.
Yes, because pod is native part of the worker nodes. It is not on master or some other else. It will be there on the specific on that worker node. So you should have the IP tables rules written on that worker node only.
Okay. And second question was like we did not have to create a replica of the service, right? If one service is down, it should be second service will be up.
You have the facility to create it. In case you want to create, you can create it. If your application demands that one, you have that option available.
No, this question arises because like in your diagram, you told that there will be a single service which is shared across all the master and worker node. So
for that application.
Okay.
You can have multiple services. Yeah.
So you mean to say like if we have suppose for one is Java application and there is .NET, so we need to have a two separate one, correct?
Yes. We need to have that. Yeah.
Ramesh, this is Vivek.
Hi Vivek.
So I'm sorry, I put the question, not question, but I'm just put that I need have a question on the chat. So I don't know whether I'm on the same sequence or do you on my.
Yeah, please
there's
ask
some.
if you don't mind. You can ask me. I think that will be better.
Okay, so thank you. So question is a basic question, right? I mean, it's a concept. It's not about YAML or pod definition. It's just simple question about first thing is we can create a pod using manual command. Second is we can create a pods using deployment or maybe a replica set, whatever. Those are kind called deployment, right? And that's how we create our pods basically using deployment.
For deployment, right? Or you can use a pod, or you can use right, correct. Go ahead.
So deployment is basically nothing but auto scaling. Am I correct?
No, deployment is not auto scaling. Deployment is you can use scaling. It can scale it. It gives the advantage. It has a benefit that you can do scaling, but you need to use something called as HPA, that is horizontal pod autoscaler, to do the auto scaling.
Okay. HPA is again kind of like it's like a
kind. It is a kind.
Okay, it's a kind. So
yeah,
I heard that we do have a controller manager.
Yes. So
and
controller
deployment.
manager.
Those things which we know that, right?
Correct.
So that's how the basic starts. I'm sorry that I'm asking the basic question again, but this is very important for everyone to understand. Otherwise, the question will be repeat and repeat and repeat. So that's why I just want to clear the confusion for everybody and for us also, for me also as well. So we have a three kind of deployment. I would say what I should call the controller manager, replica set, and deployment. Right? All these three kind. What we call that?
Let me explain you that. Don't worry. Your question is absolutely fantastic.
On top of that, we have a service kind, which can be your cluster IP, node port, and load balancer. Am I correct?
Yes, correct, Vivek.
So this is what exactly we need to understand, how the communication start from service to deployment, and to pod. That's the workflow we need to understand. So now question is over here is, I always have a confusion between a service. Now service role is what, and deployment role is what, right? Why we are using both? If I want to correlate with the cloud services, it might be like a load balancer. I heard that node port is or there are three kind of service, right? One is cluster IP, node port, and load balancer, and DNS maybe, So, but again, why are these are all three has the same function like a load balancer or communication to communication outside world to inside world? If let's say I don't want to communicate with anyone, I want to have an internal cluster IP. So internal communication can happen with cluster IP, right? I don't need a node port. I don't need a load balancer.
Okay.
I just need a communication.
Understood.
In that
Do you
case,
have a question?
let me complete and then you can answer maybe better. So if I have within network, within cluster, Kubernetes cluster, I don't want to communicate to outside world. I just need to deploy a replica set, and on top of that, I can deploy my cluster IP. That should work, right, within the cluster. That's my understanding, I believe. Now the cluster IP function is to
I'm going to cover that cluster IP address. We have not covered it.
Okay, well, I mean, it is starts with that, so that's fine, because the confusion starts with when I'm trying to read the documentation, it starts from that workflow to from bottom to top, right? So, anyways, I can understand load balancer first or cluster node cluster IP later on. That's fine. But question is, I still confused with the kind which I told you, right? You are saying that auto scale. So, what is the function of kind deployment, kind replica set, kind controller manager, and what is the function of service, kind cluster IP, kind replica, kind node port, and kind load balancer? What is the function? Where we have to use and why we have to use this service on different scenarios?
Understood. Your question, I got your question. Okay, I will explain you. Don't worry about that. So Vivek, and for all the for the benefit of everyone, let me just tell you that what is the ultimate motto of the Kubernetes? What is the building? To deploy the pod. So how do we deploy the pod? This is the objective of the Kubernetes cluster, nothing else, and manage them, right? Kubernetes itself is an orchestration tool. So inside the pod you have containers. So don't now think about the pod, containers right now. So Kubernetes just manages the pods, creates the pods and manages them. So how do you create a pod? So pod can be created by using a kind called as a pod. This is one of the type, right? Another way to create a pod is, this is one. Another way is to create the pod is you can use a deployment. This is again a second kind. Okay. Is there any other way we can deploy the pod in the system?
Using replication controller.
You can use replication controller is nowadays the old story now, right? Because nowadays we use the replica sets. And replica sets is the part of the deployment, yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes, replica sets are the part of the replica deployment. The reason is that deployment has the ability of creating a replicas of it. It can scale up, it can scale down. But pod cannot do that. Kind pod can't do that. It cannot scale up and scale down to scale down. By the way, both the kinds are going to deploy the same thing, pods only. But what deployment is doing, it is giving the ability to you to scale up and scale down. If you want 5 pods, you want 3 pods, you want 4 pods, you want 100 pods, that is possible using the deployment. And deployment itself doesn't do that job. The replica set does that job. Okay, so replica set maintain that. Replica set is the one kind which helps you to scale up the application and scale down the application. All right, and third kind is there, which is.
Then why we need a deployment?
Why you did a?
Why we need a deployment?
That is a format, right? That is the syntax actually. We have to.
No. The question is that on the master node, in the kind deployment, there is a controller called as called as one of the controller is nothing but deployment controller. The deployment control subset is a replica set. So whenever you create a deployment, replica sets get created.
I got your point. Now deployment can manage multiple replica sets.
Right. It can manage multiple replica sets. When you have different versions of the application, you have different replica sets. So that is managed by deployment only.
Okay, that is why we need deployment on a large scale.
Right. Okay. All right, guys. And now we'll come back to this one. I think I have deployment in detail. I'm going to discuss again because I have not discussed it properly. Okay.
Ramesh, you were supposed to explain the third kind, right? What is that?
HPA.
Okay.
HPA is because it goes into the different discussion altogether, because I want to focus on the networking right now. But what is happening HPA? Because let's say Vivek has asked this question, that's why I'm answering this one. Deployment job along with the replica set is to upscale the pods or downscale the pods. But if you want to do the automatic pod scaling, right? If my CPU utilization is going more than 70%, then add one more pod. If my CPU utilization is again going more than 70%, add one more pod. So that time we required a HPA. So HPA, what it does, it just monitors the CPU performance, CPU utilization and RAM utilization, and then accordingly you can decide that on which parameter you want to scale up the pod. So that time you have to do, that is nothing but auto scaling, and that is done by using HPA. So we are going to discuss.
Okay, that's a horizontal pod scaling.
Yes, correct. So now what I want to guys focus on right now, let me complete now I have completed the node port concept of the service. So in this service type, what we discussed till now, okay, so in the service type, there are three types of the service. One is a node port that I have explained you now. Second one is a cluster IP address that I am going to explain you now. And third one is your load balancer that also I am going to explain you now. So let me now, if you have cleared with the node port, let me explain the cluster IP and load balancer for you.
Ramesh, I have a question. If you can go to the Putty session, okay. I mean, I know I'm not sure if I'm asking this question in advance, but then just to understand, when the cluster IP address was showing, right? When you have listed the services, right? It was showing us the cluster IP address, right? So does it create it automatically, or it belongs to the master node, or from where it is coming? So that is that what you're going to explain now, or?
Yes, I'm going to explain that now.
Okay, sorry. Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I hope that I have answered everybody's question, guys. Please allow me to now explain the cluster.
Just a question. Hello, Ramesh?
Yeah, Bolo. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah. So actually we were accessing your application on master node IP. Okay. So in the load balancer, if suppose can I give the real IPs as 3 IPs, one of master, one of worker, and one of another worker, and give the ports? Can that way be
Yes, you can access it. You can give the master IP address, you can give the worker 1, worker 2, and use the same port, you will get the same results.
Okay, so in the let's say that in the F5 load balancer I have, and then I can put all those 3 IPs and a single port as my real IPs, and the load will get distributed, right? That way?
Yes, correct. It will get distributed. Absolutely.
Ramesh, can you go to the diagram? I have a question on diagram before you go to the next topic. The diagram which you drawn for the service and the port, node port, and so here I know. See, the thing is you're creating a node port, and then you're creating the service port, and there is a pod or the container port, right? The one which is distributing across is the namespace. So the connection between service and the pod is, you're telling endpoint. So is that a namespace connection, or that part I was not sure how that endpoint communication happens. So can you explain
IP
that?
tables. IP tables. It happens with IP tables.
Oh, so it happens with ICP. Okay, got it. And then the one which is service you are extending to master worker and all, that's a namespace part of it, or?
Yes, namespace part of it. This is a namespace. Actually, same service get distributed across the entire cluster using the namespace.
So the namespace creation, you'll explain it, or that's covered, or I'm not sure.
Namespace creation will be discussed in detail in the RBAC, rollback
Oh,
access
RBAC,
control.
huh? Oh, to understand our overall level, say if 100 pods are of same functionality, is it what namespace we club together, right? I don't know how that namespace is, right? How
I
do
will, I
you?
will, I will hold. Please hold that question. I will explain you in detail. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Ramesh,
Good.
question regarding the
Ramesh.
earlier discussion. When he's asking about the load balancer, can we give the three IPs like master, worker, and the other worker node? But the question is here, like, what is the need we need to give the master? Because even though if you give master, it will route to either worker one or worker two, right? Because
if basically I'll tell you one thing. Little bit we are going to discuss in that detail about ingress controller and all that stuff. If you hold your questions for some time, I think it will allow me to give a better picture. But don't worry about that one. There is the point for which he has asked about, that he want to access it from the all. Let's say that if one node goes down, or if this IP address is not accessible, or if this IP address is not accessible, something like that has happened, and if this is working only, the distribution can happen. So question is not wrong. Question is right. You can use the load balancer and you can put that here like this one. It will get distributed. Okay, but the point here is that whether this is right approach or not, that we'll discuss it later on. We have not discussed, he has just asked whether it is possible or not, but approach is right or wrong, that we have to discuss in the ingress controller topic.
So Ramesh, small clarification. So since this service is the one that does load balancing, irrespective of the worker node or any node IP, if we use the node port, it should route the traffic to that service, and that service routes the traffic to the corresponding pods.
Yes, correct.
Okay, yeah.
So Ramesh, just to clarify that the cluster IP, node port, or load balancer, confusions come over here. Is the load balancer specific only doing a job of load balancer, but it is not the way it is. Service kind equals your cluster IP, or kind equals your node port or load balancer. All job is to do a load balancing.
Within the cluster, it will do that.
So, I mean, it is not just specifically only for a load balancer do the job of load balancing. It is that every kind in the service do the load balancing, whether it's a cluster IP or node port also as well.
Right. Only the approach is different. Their approach is different.
Okay.
Otherwise,
because that's why the confusion comes that load balancer, I have to create a load balancer kind of service to create a load balancing job, but it is not the way it is.
Right. So that's why I'm not explaining, because there is a lot of things need to be explained to explain you the load balancing concept, which is ingress controller. Okay. Point here is not because you are not just looking that this is only one service. You have to think. We will be discussing in detail when there are hundreds of the applications are there, hundreds of services are running. Then how you are going to load balance the workload? That time you have to. We will be thinking about, yeah, should I use real load balancer? Should I use ingress controller? What should I use? So that thought process will come here that time. Right now, don't jump to the questions which are which right now coming. We are going to discuss in detail about that. Okay. Now we will take a break, but let me just finish up these two types only quickly. What is the meaning of cluster IP address, and what is the meaning of load balancer type? Right, guys? So cluster IP address is nothing but when we create a service of types cluster IP. Okay. So that time what happens? The IP address, this cluster IP service is also same way it functions. Only difference here is that when we create a cluster IP, this cluster IP is not accessible from the outside. You cannot access the service type called as a cluster IP from the outside. So let me show you that. kubectl create, let me use run, let's create a deployment, create deployment called as app2 using image called as nginx or httpd, let's say, space, yeah. Okay, so this app2 is created. Now you can see here kubectl get deployment. So there is one app2 is there is one pod running up. Now I'll not scale up. Let's create a kubectl expose deployment slash app2 by using a type called as cluster IP, and port I'm using is 80. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have to give the name, different name here, name app3. Now you can see kubectl get svc. Now we got, this is my type called as a cluster IP address. Look at this. This is service type called as a cluster IP address. You got this cluster IP address, and this is the port number. So when we need cluster IP address, so guys, think about that. There is no node port here, so you cannot access it from the outside. If you want to access the application, you can access it by using this particular IP address. Internally, it will load balance it. But when the cluster IP is needed, whenever you want to access the application internally from the cluster, that time you use the cluster IP address. But why? So think about that. You have one application which is running as a front-end application. This is my front-end application. And there is another application which is running as my back-end database here. Okay, and if you want to communicate from this application to this application, how do you communicate? Let's say that you have a 10 pods here inside it. You have a 10 pod inside the second service, second application. You have a 10 points, or let's say 10 pods or 20 pods in the front end service. So how to communicate from your front end application to the back end application? Because there are 10 IP addresses in the pods, there are 10 IP addresses in the back end data pods. So you should have one IP address to interact between the two services. So what I can do, in the database string of the front end, I can give the IP address of the cluster IP address of this database application. It will internally do the diversion of the traffic. That time, neither node port will help you, neither load balancer will help you. That time only cluster IP will be helpful to you guys. So
yeah, thanks Ramesh for clarification.
Okay guys, so this is the second type of the service. And third type of the service is something which is interesting, that is called as a load balancer. Let me create it. kubectl create deployment. I am creating a deployment called as app4 using image called as, let's say, httpd. It is created. You can see here kubectl get deployment. Yes, it is created app4 now. Now kubectl expose deployment slash app4, then type of the service is load balancer. This is interesting. Just watch it, guys. Load balancer. And still I'm giving the port. This is important. Port is equal to 80. I need to specify here port. Otherwise it will not work. It is exposed. Now see it. kubectl get svc. Look at this. This is load balancer. Now it has got the cluster IP address. So every service will get the cluster IP because for the internal communication. But depending on how you want to expose it to the outside or internally, you need to use the different load balancer. Now, but see here, it has got the node port. So whenever you create a service type called as a load balancer or node port, you will get the node ports available to access it from the outside. So functionality by functionality, node port, load balancer is same. Then what is the difference between them? Right? Node port, if you have a cloud native application, if you have deployed the load balancer, if you have a load balancer IP address, you can give this IP address here. So consider that if I have the IP address, so I can use here external IP address. I think that option is available here. Let me just use --help. Yeah, this is that option, external IP address. So if I have the load balancer, real load balancer, I can give the IP address of that one here. Let's say something called as 32.32.32.0. I don't know is this present or not. I'm just giving it randomly. It is already there. Okay, let me create an app name is equal to app5. Look at this. This expose now. Get SVC. Look at this. This is an external IP address. Now you don't have to use the IP address of the master server to access it from the outside. Now you can directly pass this to the load balancer IP address. You don't have to specify, you can specify the port and then you have to redirect that port, right? But if you have an external IP address, you can use the external IP address of the load balancer, okay, which may be inside your organization, or you may create a metal load balancer, or you can create you can use AWS load balancer, or you can use Azure load balancer. Its IP address you can specify here, right? And then if you type in the browser the IP address of this particular load balancer, it will start functioning. That time you don't have to expose the IP address of your master node or maybe your worker nodes. Using a node port or using a node port, you are using the IP addresses of the master node or worker nodes. But if you are using the load balancer, you need to use the IP address of the external load balancer.
Got it, Ramesh. Thanks for clarification. I think this is a really good explanation from you. That's what I was needed. So only thing is that if you have a two-tier architecture, one is web application, which is your public facing, and database, which is your backend infrastructure, which doesn't need any public facing. In that case, we can create a service, a node port or a load balancer for the front end, and for the back end, we can create a cluster IP as a kind.
Right, you understood it correctly. Yeah.
So this load balancer can be used as a data control, right? Data plane.
Yes, you can use it.
And this will be exposed to the outside world.
Yes. If you have EKS or let's say what is it, AKS, right? These two Kubernetes services are there. If I would have been using that services now, automatically this external IP address will have would have got hit here, reflected automatically. I don't have to use it because it will use the internal load balancer of the cloud native services. Let me repeat the sentence what I said.
Yeah, see one quick question, right? Can you connect to the outside using node ports?
This one you are saying?
Yeah, the node ports. Yeah, can you connect from the outside world from the internet using node ports?
Yeah, we can connect, right? That is what I have shown you. Let me change this IP address here. Port number. It is coming. This is my public IP address.
Ramesh, I cannot
Okay,
quite
yeah. Sometimes when I create deployment, it comes like internal instead of it comes as internal. Even if I try to, it's difficult for me connecting to the outside. Sometimes it seems easy for you guys anyway. So it seems easy.
Yeah. Make sure that your port is open on Python or your NSG if you are using Azure, or it's a security group if you are using AWS.
Yeah. Okay, you open a port on security group. Okay, got it.
Guys,
Okay.
it is a fun actually. You start working on this and you love it. Just start working on it.
Ramesh, could you please explain, brief about the difference between node port and load balancer? Sorry, I could not quite understand it.
Node port is nothing but it will use the IP address of the your master node or worker nodes.
Okay.
And if you are using load balancer, a real load balancer IP address, then you can use the load balancer IP address to access the application, not master or worker node.
So what are the situation we go for load balancer and the situation we go for node port? Is this something you'll be covering in next sessions or?
Yeah, that is what we were discussing about. I think Abhiram was asking, if I'm not wrong, he was asking the same
Yeah.
question.
No,
Right?
actually,
Then we use
node port is for the as you said, Ramesh. Node port is for the cloud native application, right? So load balancer would be for the non-cloud. That is that right way of thinking, right? Or?
No. He is asking me the situation. Node port should not. Node port is used when we are using, let's say, in the practical purpose where there is no much load, hardly one application is there, not big applications. But if there are thousands of hundreds of applications hosted on your cluster and 1 lakh users are accessing per day, or there is a TPS called as transaction per second, that 5,000 connections are getting established continuously, then node port will not help you to solve that purpose. You have to use load balancer only.
Okay, so load balancer will sit on top of node ports. Basically, it will connect to different services and right.
Yeah.
No, and also, I think
use a load balancer
Ramesh,
type of service, if you use the load balancer type of service, then you don't have to use node port.
Okay.
No, but again, load balancer is going to create node port and cluster IP automatically, Ramesh.
Yes, correct. Yes,
but
correct.
the question is not here.
Ramesh, both has to be used, right? My understanding is, yeah.
Ramesh, we need the service to talk to pod, right? So in that case, we create the service using node port, and we can have a load balancer on top of that, isn't it?
Yeah, we can have that as well. No.
So in order to talk to a service, you either need a node port or load balancer, or you can have both.
Anuj, I think when you create a node port, you don't have to create a load balancer on top of that. Load balancer will automatically create node port and cluster IP automatically. But in a production scenario, as a best practices, we should use a load balancer and cluster IP. I mean, node port will be there eventually, but when you have to communicate with outside world, load balancer has to be there as a kind service. That is more better approach, I believe.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
Guys, try to understand what I said before saying that if you have one application or two applications, use node port when there is no load. Okay, make this statement clear. But if you are having a multiple application hosted in your cluster and thousands of users and thousands of concurrent connections are coming, then node port will not be helpful, right? Use load balancer type of the service. Are you getting it? So
yeah,
you
but that
actually
is on top of a node port, right? Let's say I've got a pod, and I've got a pod which is on replica, and I want to access this. So we are saying that we should be having a load balancer, but will that load balancer talk to those pods directly, or they will be going via another service layer, which is the node port?
Node port, yes, of course it will require node port.
Yeah,
of course it will require.
Yeah,
so as you said that load balancer will require a node port. Okay.
So Ramesh, one thing, just to clarify, so node port is required when you're exposing something outside. So whether you are having load balance or not, if I want to expose my app thing outside, I need to have a node port, right? Because either irrespective, either it is a 1 app, 2 app, or 1,000 apps or whatever, node port is required. Otherwise, I mean, ultimately, if I'm exposing outside, what I'm understanding from your thought is, if I'm exposing something outside, then I require both load balancer and node port in case of higher traffic. But if it is less, means node port will work out, right? That's the right way of thinking, correct?
Yes, correct.
Only having
Ramesh,
what I mean is just not having a node port and just having a load balancer will not solve the purpose if you are exposing.
I think Ramesh,
yeah.
I think Ramesh, I understand Abhiram has a good point here. I mean, I just want to clarify one thing here is, see, the load balancer is automatically going to create eventually a node port and cluster IP. Without node port and IP cluster IP, it will not going to work. Simple, just only load balancer doesn't mean there is nothing like that. Load balancer will communicate with node port. Node port will communicate with cluster IP to communicate with the pod. So that's the workflow we have to follow. I mean, that has to be there. Otherwise, there's no communication just directly from load balancer to pod. It has to be through node port via cluster IP.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. That's yeah, correct. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we all are understanding correctly by just putting in the different ways. Thank you very much, guys.
No,
That's a good.
Ramesh,
One last
can we
question,
remove that
Ramesh.
service? Can we delete that service app 1 and app 2 and see if still it works?
No, how this will work? This is for pod we have
Because
created.
no. This is a service, right? This is just a service, right? App 1 and app 2. But I have one more service as app 5, which is having a node port 31018. So can't I use that?
You can
Use
use,
that,
but you can use for this application app 5. See, kubectl get deployments. We have how many deployments? I'm so sorry. Deployments. App 1, app 2, and app 4. Each application has a different service. So if I delete the service of one app, I cannot access the if I delete the service, then I will not be able to use another application service to access another application.
No. My question is, I understood that. My question is now we are accessing app 1, right? Continuously on node port. Okay. Now can I create an load balancer service to access my application as app 1?
You can do that one. You can do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that's a
then I
good
can
question,
use
actually,
that.
Ramesh. Yeah, that's a good question, Kamlesh. That's why my confusion was also, right? If you have already existing node port, let's say I don't have a load balance on top of that, and now I'm using my node port IP, whatever is it, right? So to communicate with the pod service. But question is that now I'm trying to create a load balancer kind, and I want to add that service, which is node port into that load balancer. Is it possible, or do I need to create that will go to create another node port by default? I mean,
it will go to the another node port, and guys, for one application, let's say this is one application running. Let's say this is one application running in the cluster. I can create all three type of the services to access it. I can use cluster IP address, I can use node port, I can use load balancer also. But which one
that
you
is
want
fine.
to
But we have created, let's say we have created node port, and now we don't have load balancer kind right now. In the scenario, we have a port, right? Port exposed, and we are accessing through the node IP or worker IP or master IP and calling port number to access my web application. That's what we saw. Now let's say we don't have multiple application. We have only one single application running right now, but we create a load balancer type now, right? Now when we are creating a load balancer, it automatically creates your node port and a cluster IP, right? Which is now, but I don't want to use a new node port, a new cluster IP. I want to add or associate my existing node port to that load balancer kind. Is it possible?
No, let me answer that particular one. That is not possible. What you have to think about is when you say, load balancer, think about it as a kind. That means everything else is encapsulated. The node port, cluster IP, you don't have any control. If you already have your node port and you want to create a load balancer, you cannot I want to create the load balancer on an existing node port IP. No, it is not possible because it's encapsulated. You create the load balancer and then delete the old one. If you think that the old one is redundant, you delete that particular one. You'll achieve your end result. So that means there is an abstraction. Load balancer abstracts the node port and then cluster IP, and similarly, node port abstracts the cluster IP. So you cannot control. So that is, you got to look at it at that particular level.
Because both are playing the same role. I mean, the node port and the load balancer, although the role is same, although load balancer is playing a bigger role, okay, it is, and node port is subset of load balancer, I would say, as when it comes to role, okay, but then there is no point in having two different things, okay, who are playing the same role.
It is a redundancy.
So that will make me redesign my architecture, right? Let's say I will start with the cluster IP, internal infrastructure, and tomorrow my requirement add up to communicate to the outside world, and then I create a node port kinds service, right? And I have only one application, right? I'm not talking about a multiple application, but just let's say think about, we already have one application, web application running on my pods, and using node port I can access that service. But eventually, maybe we want to try to create a load balancer kind. In that case, you are saying that you have to redesign. I mean, I cannot use I have to delete my node port, the existing one, and it automatically creates load balancer. I'm going to create my node port and cluster IP. I know that because it is how the workflow communication starts. So I'm just a little bit confused that how
Yes,
do you
yes,
work?
yes. Yeah, you start with cloud IP, and you change your mind. I want to go with the node port. Create a node port and then delete the cloud IP. And then you change your mind again. I want to create a load balancer. Then you create the load balancer and then delete the node port.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay, 31977, right?
So we should not be using the existing node port in our load balancer, right? We have to create altogether a different load balancer.
No, it is
Because
not
you don't have a
allowing that.
control. When you create the load balancer, it doesn't expose it. If you look at the command, it doesn't give you, to the there. That is.
See, guys, that is not that will not be the IP tables will not work that way,
Right.
and it will create a problem. Okay, at the back end. I hope that we had a very good discussion on the services, and I think that everybody has got clear now clarity about the services networking. So let's have a break for 10 minutes and come back, and then we'll start with the rollback and rollout and more discussion about the deployment.
Ramesh, can I ask one question? I mean, people can go
Yeah,
on
please,
break,
but guys, please go on the break because others are waiting. You can ask me question, no problem.
Yeah. So I want a little clarification on the cluster IP service. I believe why I mean, what is the functionality of it, the cluster IP?
I think I have explained that one, but let me explain you that. If you have a front end application PHP, right, and if you have a back end application MySQL, and in the front end application you have a 10 10 pods are there, and in the backend application you have a 10 pods.
Right.
How to connect the front end with the backend? You need a constant IP address, right?
Ramesh, the concept looks like it is same as traditional application where front end suppose some 10 VMs or 20 VMs are there, back end some 10 or 20 VMs are there and communicating to them. The concept is almost same like that only, no? Even here.
Yes.
The need of cluster and load balance.
Right. It is same to same. Only difference is that you are making it containerized, moving
That's
fast.
all. Yeah. Even suppose in that case, if it is a 3-tier architecture, we will have 2 load balancers and 1 cluster IP, right?
Yes, we can do that way. Yes, correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
But actually, this is basically important for the microservices. Huh? So you have to create a small models and then deploy inside the container. That will be.
Yeah, the overall broader concept is same, but here it is microservices and containers and pods. So the communication path is different. Yes.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. All right. Yes. Thank you.
Ramesh, I think you have given a different history because it says.
This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, I think we are missing some few comments in the last ones. Ramesh, if you can send them.
I think I have sent.
We got kubectl expose pod /pod 2. We haven't got.
What is the command number? What is the line number?
963.
You got 963, right? Let me give that. Okay.
Thanks, Ramesh.
Thank you. Guys, let's move ahead. I will show you the later on because we will be having a lot of steps going on. We will be creating a service by using a YAML file that I will show. But now the point which I want to discuss after the services and the Kubernetes networking is very important. that is called as a deployment and deployment strategies. And we'll discuss about the deployment rollout, rollback, and that steps, and we'll try to cover up this as well. So please listen carefully, guys, so that you don't have to catch up it later. Okay, so then a lot of things comes up, but I'm here to clarify your questions, guys, not an issue. But what is a rolling strategy? Or what is the deployment strategy? So specifically, we have seen deployment is nothing but it is the object of the Kubernetes, which is used to create the replicas with the help of replica sets of the pods. That is we have seen. So whenever we create a replicas or whenever we deploy the deployment, how it gets created. So now we have to watch it. Just give me some time to explain this clearly. What is a deployment strategy? So guys, I have one, let's say, deployment. I'm just taking this example, ready-made example. We have already discussed a lot about it. So let me take this one. So vi, let's say deployment2.yaml. Okay, so I'm creating a second deployment now. So now here what I'm doing, so before that, let me just use simple one, vi deployment1.yaml. So this is my deployment, right, guys? That day we have created this deployment. So with the 4 replicas, let me do it again, same to same way. I'm going to deploy it again. So how to deploy? You can use command kubectl create -f deployment1.yaml. So it shows that deployment 1 has been created, right? Now let me show you description of this one. So it has created kubectl get deployment. It has created a deployment 1. So now let me delete this deployments, guys. kubectl delete deployment. I don't want app1, app2, and app4. Let me delete them. It has been deleted. Is there any different pod running? Kube pods. Okay, so these are the pod which are running. kubectl delete pod 1 and pod 2, and it is getting deleted. Right now we have these pods are running. I see deployment. 4 pods are running. Now see this carefully, guys. kubectl get svc. So a lot of svcs are there. Let me delete this also. kubectl delete svc. This is where the actually labeling comes into handy, because now I have to delete it manually one by one. If I want to delete one application, I can just write delete all the steps whose deployment is this one or label is this one. So I have deleted my all names, services. Okay, because I want to clear the new stuffs now. Now we have one deployment running, kubectl get deployment, guys, and its name is deployment1. We have one replica sets called as kubectl get rs, that is called as a deployment1. So this is taking care of the desired states of the replicas. Okay, now let me describe this kubectl describe deployment slash deployment1. Now look at this, guys. So this is called as a deployment definition. This is the name of the deployment. This is getting created in the K21. These are the labels, annotations, selector, and how many replicas are there? It shows that there are 4 desired, 4 updated, 4 total, 4 available, and 0 unavailable. That means everything is working fine. And what is the strategy type? It shows a rolling update. Right now in the rolling update, if you see here, there is one rolling update strategy. And what is that? It is 25% maximum unavailable and 25% maximum surge. So what is the meaning of these two words? Maximum unavailable and maximum surge. So at any given point of time, if you have four desired pods, at any point of time, even though you say that delete all four pods, they will not get deleted simultaneously. 25% will be maximum unavailable. So out of four, one will get deleted and three will not get deleted. Okay. So when I say that four desired are there and maximum percentage is 25% unavailable, that means out of four, only one pod is unavailable. Three are there. So unless and until the new pod is not created, next pod will not get deleted. If I use 50% of the max unavailable, so what is the meaning of that, guys? There are four pods. You are deleting all the four pods. All of them will not get deleted simultaneously. So when we fire delete out of four, when you say 50% maximum unavailable, only two will get deleted, new two will get created, and then only earlier two will get deleted. So if I want to draw this diagrammatically, how it will be. This is important to understand. So consider you have these four pods running, pod 1, pod 2, pod 3, and pod 4. Right? And now you say that 25% unavailable. Now you started deleting all this one by one. Okay, or maybe in one go you have started deleting it. So how many pods will get deleted? Only one pod will get deleted because it is a 25% max unavailable. If I say it is a 50% max unavailable, that means out of four pods, if you say 50%, that is two pods will get terminated or deleted. Unless and until these pods are not getting created again, this pod will not get deleted. That is the meaning of max unavailable. At any point of time, that many pods will not be available in case you want to delete them. And what is the maximum surge? So what is total number of desired? 4. So maximum you can have 5 pods running because 25% is the surge maximum. Because while deleting one new pod will be created, but how many maximum you can have? That is not more than this 5 pods. That is called as a 25% max surge. If you say it is a 50%, that means if you have 4 pods running, and if you start deleting the 2 pods, the maximum number of pods at any point of time would be running or deleting or terminating is not more than 6. That is the meaning of it. I want to show you this with the example now. Okay, so let me show that example. So rolling update, this is the strategy type rolling update, and 25% maximum unavailable and 25% maximum surge is right now its definition. Now guys, let's scale up this one. kubectl, scale this application called as this one. Let me scale up it. So how do I scale up it, guys? Can you tell me how to scale up it? kubectl scale deployment /deployment1. This is the name of the deployment. -- replicas is equal to 5. So let me make 8 for the better understanding. Okay, all right. So now kubectl get pods. So there are 8 pods now. So let me take a duplicate session so that simultaneously we can monitor it. watch kubectl get pods -o wide. Okay guys, all of them are running now. All of them are running. How many of them are there? 8 are there. If I delete one pod, okay, what will happen? What is the maximum unavailable in our case is 25%. So when we say 25%, so what is the 25% of 8? It will come 2, right? So I can delete 2 pods simultaneously also. So let me delete these pods now. kubectl delete pod. Can I delete 2 simultaneously? Yes, I can delete. Let me enter here now and see quickly guys what is happening. Now see, it is creating pod. So maximum, how many pods are there now? See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 plus 1, 9 is there. If I delete the, so maximum, what is the percentage? We have kept it, maximum search is 25%. So maximum only 10 pods will be allowed to run or allowed to operate in the termination and deletion and running process, maximum 10. So if you are deleting some pods, now let me delete some more pods. kubectl delete pod 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? I am deleting these 4 pods, guys. So maximum unavailable is only 25%. So only 2 will get deleted first. See now, only 2 will start getting deleted first. So how many of them are there now? So you see here, if even if I start deleting all the pods, so basically unless and until only 2 pods will get deleted first, the 2 pods will get created, then 2 pods will be deleted, then 2 pods will be get created. That is the scenario it will be always. It won't get deleted all the 4 pods or 8 pods in one go. That is the meaning of maximum unavailable and maximum search. I hope that it is clear. So I have one slide to which will help you to understand that concept. Yeah, this is a definition. Can you see guys this definition of maximum unavailable and maximum search? Oh, why it is coming in here? This definition. Look at this definition, guys. Deployment strategy. So create or rolling update. We are discussing about the rolling update right now, and what is the maximum unavailable and optional field that specifies the maximum number of pods that can be unavailable during the update process. And what is the max search and optional field that specifies the maximum number of pods that can be created over the desired number of pods. So if you have 8 pods, if you are keeping it 20%, 25%, it will be maximum 10 will be created. And if you how many unavailable, maximum and unavailable will there? 2 will be available if there are 8 pods. That is your rolling update strategy. Now this will get cleared once I show you a recreate policy. So what is the recreate strategy? Recreate strategy is nothing but, let's say there are now how many pods are running guys here? There was another screen. Yeah, there are 8 pods running. Now I am going to make change in this strategy. Now I am going to make it a recreate strategy. So what is the meaning of recreate? Just watch it and then you'll understand it. Deployment1.yaml, and here I am going to write a strategy. So am I correct? I'm using the right word, strategy. Yes. So let me cross verify so that we will not get, okay. And strategy we are going to use is a recreate. Yes. Okay, guys. So what is the strategy I have used now? And now here I will use replicas. Let's say 4 is fine, right, guys? No problem. Okay. Now let me deploy this kubectl. Apply -f deployment1.yaml. Okay, guys, see carefully now. I am deploying it. Now see what is happening. It is terminating. It is terminating all 4 and then it will create a new 4. So recreate is nothing but delete it and then recreate it. Okay. See, only 4 pods are there. If I fire the command, same command again, see what happens now. Oh, it is unchanged, right? Let me use here 6 pods here.
Did it recreate? Or?
No, because it is not unchanged. It is unchanged, so it is not created. Now see here. Let me apply it now. Now see. The 2 more pods are getting creating because, right?
So according
How
to
I can
recreate all the pods, right, Ramesh?
No, there was unchanged now because there was no change at all. That's why it is. So if I try to use some other image or something like that inside it, let me use some image here. Let me use Nginx here. Save this. And now let me deploy this. Now see all the pods are getting terminating because now it is changed. Now it will, once everything is deleted, then only it will create new one. That is the recreate
There will
policy.
be a downtime here, right? I think.
Yeah, there will
I'm
be
not sure.
downtime. It will be downtime. There will be downtime. This is not useful. Okay, but just for the information purpose, you should know this one. Sometime if you want to change the image or if you want to change the version of the application, so this sometimes this may be useful. This is one of the strategy that you can use, but default strategy is rolling update, not this one.
What is the big difference between scaling up and scaling down versus recreating?
Okay.
To change the image name, that's a different thing. But apart from that, scaling up and down is also the same thing, right?
Your voice is not properly coming.
So my question is, what is the difference between the recreate and scaling piece?
Okay, I'll just answer your question in some time, please, if you don't mind. Just type the question in the chat box. So recreate strategy is used for deleting all the pods and recreate it. That is the strategy used, which is not used nowadays, which is not a default policy. But in case you want, you have a blue-green kind of deployment where you want to disconnect the earlier version and recreate the new version, that time you can use, right? Second one is rolling update. What is a rolling update? Rolling update is nothing, but you don't want to bring down your entire application. You want to, let's say you want to do something called a 75% up percentage is your application. One version of the application should run and another 25% should get down. So that time rolling update will be helpful for you. Okay. So I can change the percentage of the strategy. So let me show you how it is useful to you guys. So I have a rolling strategy called as this one. Let's say this is one of the deployment I have. The name of the deployment is something called as orange. Okay, now let me go here, PI, orange.yaml. This is the deployment I am creating, and you see the strategy now. Now what it shows, it will create a deployment called as orange. Replicas will be 4 maintained, right guys? And it shows that maximum unavailable is equal to 0. This is a rolling update strategy. That means none of the pods should get deleted. Okay, right? Unless and until all are not created, 4 of they are not created, it will not delete earlier one. That is the meaning of this one. So if there are 4 pods running, and if I return here max unavailable is 0, and if you try to delete one pod, unless and until that pod is not created, it will not terminate the existing pod. So you will have 5 pods running. One is in the process of creating and another is in the process of terminating. So because here we have written maximum unavailable is 0. So we'll deploy this policy and we'll see that how it goes. And max surge is 2 is nothing but maximum number of pods which you can run in this particular strategy or rolling update is 6, not more than that. So which will have a creating, container creating, running and deletion option. So let me save and deploy this one. kubectl apply -f orange.yaml. I think I have API version is not written here. Oh, so how I can write here API version? Which one I can use? apps/version1. Now let's deploy this. Yeah, it is deployed now. You can see here kubectl. Now in this place you will be able to see now it is showing some error pull image pull option. Oh, I think I have given it the wrong image. Let me use here only engines. Now it just come back, right? So guys, now how many of them are running here? There are 4 pods running. What will happen if I delete one pod? Let's see that. kubectl delete pod. Okay, I'm just deleting it and see here now what happens. See, unless and it is not created, it will not get terminated. See, now it is terminating. So I have already 4 pods running and then only it has terminated it. Again, see properly. So this is my pod. Now watch here guys, there are 4 running pods. When I hit delete, when I press enter, one pod will start creating and another pod will go into the termination mode. But termination process will not get completed unless and until running container doesn't come in running mode. Now see it. Look, termination and container creation. Now terminating is happening. This is the meaning of it. What will happen if I delete 2 pods now? If I delete 2 pods here, right, it will, if two pods are now failed here, let's say in this case, so maximum unavailable is what? 0. So it will create first of all 2 pods and then it will terminate the another 2 pods. But what is the maximum surge I have given? 2. I think total 6 is given if I'm not wrong. So maximum surge is nothing but 6. That means maximum you can have 6 pods. But if I start deleting the 3 pods here, then then there will be problem. So let me delete now. This is my first pod.
Ramesh, when are you doing these changes on YAML file on deployment? Is it doing the changes on the same replica set or is it creating a new replica set? And
no, it is getting on the same replica set. Okay, let me delete one more pod, guys. Okay, so I'm deleting 2 pods. Now, what is the situation as per rolling update strategy? two pods will get terminated. First of all, get created, then only the two pods will get terminated. Now see here. Now see, two pods have started creating a container. Now the two pods are getting terminated. This is the advantage. This is the meaning of maximum unavailable. At any point of time, your 4 pods should be running. Now the problem, sometime something will happen in a. We may think about that. What will happen if that doesn't get recreated? But guys, it will get recreated because the 2 other pods are running. We are using the image of the container. We are using the other parameters which is defined in the etcd, which is defined in the manifest, and it is there inside the etcd, and that particular parameters will be picked up by the replica sets and will be deployed. So the failure of the getting recreated the pod will only happen if the image is not coming. If image is not pulled up, that is the only reason if it can be failed, or there is a change in the version. So if that scenario happens, then what will happen? It will not terminate it. It will go into the pending state. Okay, thank you guys. Now I hope that is clear now. So rolling update, what is the strategy? Strategy is nothing but one is a recreate and another one is a rolling update. Rolling update is the default strategy. So in case there are 2 important parameters that is called as the maximum unavailable and maximum surge. These are the 2 parameters that you need to remember, guys, for a long time. Describe deployment, and name of the deployment is orange, and you can see here. Whatever the changes I have made as per the YAML file, it is getting reflected here. 0 maximum unavailable and 2 maximum search. Okay, I hope that now that is clear. So there are certain time period, cooling period is applied. So how many seconds your container should wait for recreating, or it should allow the termination. So there is some cooling parameters are there. That is one of them is min ready second. So what are these parameters? Let me explain this, guys. I hope that this is clear now. Strategy type recreate and rolling update. Rolling update is the default value, and these are the 2 important values I have explained. I spent a lot of time to explain this one. I hope that it is clear. The value can be an absolute number or percentage, right? You can use any one. Like you can either give 25%, 50%, or you can say 0% or 1% or whatever, or numbers you can use 0 or 2. Deployment parameters. These are the deployment parameters. Progress, deadline, second. Specifies the number of seconds we want to wait for our deployment to progress before the system reports back that the deployment has failed. So that means if you want to recreate the pods, how many seconds you want to wait, that you can allow. So that is nothing but some cooling time can be given to recreate the new pods. Similarly, minimum ready seconds is nothing but specifies the minimum number of seconds for which a newly created pod should be ready without any of its containers crashing. Okay, and revision history limit. So now we are going to see that revision, how we can go back to our version 1, version 2, version 3, in case you have multiple versions. So revision history limit, you can just keep this in mind, guys. We can have only 10 volt replica sets, and paused is nothing but this is one of the field. If you want to, if there is something going wrong, you can pause the deployment, you can make changes into that one, and you can undo the pause, right? That is nothing but a pause. Now, so this is something about the deployment strategy. If you have any question, guys, we can pick up now, and then we can go ahead for the rollback and update. So let me see.
Ramesh, if a pod is having 1,000 containers, okay, and if you go with the rolling update strategy, okay, so what is going to, how long it will take to spin off a new pod before it terminates one of them?
Yeah, it will take time, but if you are launching 1,000 pods, I'm damn sure that you might be thinking of that kind of hardware. You should have that kind of hardware to take care. Otherwise, it is not going. It will take a long time to spin up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys. Now, Let me take the questions, guys. There are 4, 5. Can we pick up questions up to? Okay. What is the difference between recreate and scaling? Recreate is nothing but you are deleting all the pods and recreating it. Scaling is nothing but you are just increasing the number of pods, either decrease or increase the number of pods. So recreate is a strategy to deploy the pods. The way you want to deploy the pods in the cluster is the strategy. Scaling is altogether different parameter. Right, Rishi?
Yeah, thank you, Ramesh.
Okay.
Ramesh, in both cases, the same image will be used, right? For the deployment, no change in image.
In which case you are saying recreate or scaling, right?
Yeah. So the previous image will be used, right? Whichever is there.
In recreate scenario, it can be different, but scaling, you have to use same image.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing, Ramesh, on the rolling update,
Mm-hmm.
scaling up, we are already making a constant number scaling up, or would the number of pods also change?
No, number of pods will remain same. It won't change. It is rolling update is not it is not a scaling strategy. It is not scaling or down scaling. It is just if you want to delete some if you are deleting some pods due to some reasons, then how it should recreate, whether it should first create it and then delete, or you want to delete all the things and then create it. So the way you want to deploy the pods inside the cluster is the rolling strategy, but scaling is something different. You have existing pod running and you want to upgrade, you want to increase the number of pods. Let's say 4 are of them running right now and you want to make 10. So then that is a scaling. Scaling will come into picture.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Piyush has answered that question. Thank you, Piyush. Rolling, if we have 8 pods of image engineering and we change the image to HTTPD, then while recreating it, it will recreate only 2 pods at a time, but at the end of the 2 update, in the recreate, Anush, everything will be deleted and then it will create new one.
So this is about rolling update. In that case, are we saying that at the end of the updates, all the pods would be using new image, which is HTTPD, or it will be just 2 pods of HTTPD and 4 pods of Nginx?
There will be all pods with the new image.
So, but it will be recreating them one by one, right?
Yeah, it will be recreating by one as per the rolling update policy strategy.
Okay. All right. Okay. Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. If creation fails, then terminate goes to run state. No, that is what I was discussing, right? What answer Abhiram I gave. If something goes wrong while termination only, so then it will go into the wait state. It will not recreate only.
Wait state, it won't go to running state, huh? I mean, it's
No,
technical.
it won't go to running state. You have to pause that deployment. You have to make changes. What are the issues are there? Fix it, and again unpause it.
No, because if I see, my question was if I delete it and then I recreate it. In that case,
Yeah, while recreating, in case something goes wrong with that pods are not coming up, make sure that you pause the deployment, make the appropriate correction, and unpause it. Otherwise, anyway, it is going to fail. It is not going to give any response. So you need to pause it.
oh. So when you say pause it, that only one the one which got terminated will be impacted, not other one, right? I mean,
no, you have to completely in case you that pod is getting terminated because of image issue or some other issues, right? Then you have to, and if you want to recreate, if you want to, if it is important that you want to use that pod in the running state, then you have to pause the entire deployment. You cannot pause only one pod.
Okay.
But normal, this is in case if it impacts it, it will impact all the things. In case there is a problem.
Oh, so even out of 1,000, one get impacted, everyone will contribute.
No, not in that case, not that way. In case you are modifying something in the YAML file and some parameters, some images, in that case only it will be impact. Otherwise, it won't.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise it won't. Then there is no point in having this strategies, right?
Yeah.
Because sometime you need to have, let's say if it's 1000 pods and if you are saying 25% unavailable, so at any point of time 750 pods will be running. But if you want to make that 1000 pods up, then you have to pause the deployment, recorrect that one, and again you start it. All 1000 pods will come. 750 pods will be running. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Rishi is saying, if I understood, release scaling is for a single pod, where it's a recreate is for creating multiple pods on the same image. In the pod section, normally if it is static pod, you cannot scale it. If it is a deployment pod, Rishi, then you can scale it. Is that clear? Would search config affect the maximum delete values for? Yes, it will. Definitely, it will affect Anand. It will not start terminating the next pod till the time specifically search configuration value should meet that numbers, right? That condition should be always met. Otherwise, it will not terminate the pod. Right, Anand? Okay, Piyush has given the answers of many. Okay, thank you. In pod, there is one app deployed. Okay. Sudhakara, have you answered? Have you got the answer now? In pod, there is one app deployed. What happens if I recreate pod? The data will be transferred to the new pod.
Yeah, I think it recreates when you get the image, right?
Right, yeah. If you
but
have
all
not,
the data will be lost, right? All the
yes,
data will be lost.
If some data is there in the pod, will be lost. Yes.
Okay.
So for that purpose, we have another solutions like persistent volume and volumes are there, right? We have to use that, so the data will not, imported data will not get crashed.
Okay.
What will happen to session requests which are assigned to a pod and pod is going to terminate? So Murli, I think we have discussed, I think sometime back also this question came, right? What will happen to session requests which are assigned? If that is getting terminated on the, specifically if that particular pod is requesting something or serving some request and suddenly that is gone down, so whatever that session is having, that will get lost. But if you want to keep it that happening properly, yeah, Murli, right? So you have to use a different strategy then.
Okay.
But if that particular pod is serving request, then that session will have impact. But then you have to use the different mechanisms, like if it is a database, then you have to use the stateful sets, or you have to use the transaction logs to recover it. But otherwise, that session will have a problem.
Got it, Ramesh.
Yeah, rolling update is similar to version upgrade. Yeah, in that sense, you can say it is rolling update is a version, but it is similar. It is nothing like that. It is basically you have a 10 pods and how you want to deploy them, deploy the pod in the cluster. That strategy is nothing but your rolling strategy. Okay. Yes, Abhiram. Version upgrade is something different. Version upgrade is something different.
Okay.
Rolling strategy, rolling update, version update is something different. Yeah. So rolling strategy is different, and rolling update and version upgrade is something different. So Vivek is asking what is the difference between deployment and replica sets, right? So replica set is the part of deployment controller, Vivek. So whenever we are creating a deployment, it will create a replica set and it will give the job to the replica set to maintain the desired state. Deployment doesn't keep the or maintain the desired state. Replica sets will always keep a watch on the if there is any pod which is dying or there is some issue, And if there is some issue is there, automatically if it gets the information from the API server through the deployment that there is a problem with this particular pod, recreate it, and then replica set will tell the deployment again, as well as then API server go and deploy the pod. So replica sets maintain the number of desired pod, but who will deploy that pod if there is a problem in the let's say. So how do I explain it? Let me just explain this one with this concept here diagram. Vivek, consider this is your cluster, and this is your control plane, and this is your data plane, right? This is your where data is going to deploy, and this is your master node. So now one customer says, one developer has developed one nice script, and it says that I want a 4 replicas of it, right, guys? So where that information will be given on the master server, it will be given to the API server. So there is an API server here, right? Now what API server will do? Now it will look the kind. What kind is that? So if that kind is called as a deployment, then it will give to the controller, right? Sorry. It will give to the controller manager. There is a controller manager. Inside that controller, there is one controller called as a deployment controller. So deployment controllers looks at the script and it says that I want to create the 4 replicas. So it creates one replica set inside the deployment. And it says the replica set that look that you have to always make sure that these 4 replicas are running and up and running. So this replica sets again talks to the it tells to the API server that I am ready. So API server talks to the scheduler. There is a scheduler concept here, right? Look, I want to. There is a request from the. There is a replica set is coming into picture and saying that it has to create a 4 replicas. Can you tell me on which node I should deploy? Scheduler says that look that there is a worker 2 on which you can put two particular replicas, and worker 1 2 replicas can be scheduled. That information comes from the scheduler to the API server, and then with the help of the replica sets, it will inform to the kubelet that look, you have to create on the 2 replicas on this node, and it will inform to this particular kubelet that deploy the 2 replicas on this node. And replica set will maintain information always, will track the information whether these all 4 replicas are running healthy. If any one of them is going down, then kubelet of this machine will inform to the API server. API server will inform to the etcd, and as well as replica deployment, and then deployment will help to, it will tell that replica set that look, there is a problem with the particular this one. So then again what will happen, it will inform to the API server, get the information from the scheduler where we can deploy this particular pod. Then API server gets the information from the scheduler, and then replica set informs to the API server, go ahead and deploy on the worker 1. So accordingly the kubelet will come into picture and it will get deployed. So replica sets always maintain the desired state.
So if we the same concept of cluster IP and node port and the load balancer, here also we have a replica set. On top of that we have a deployment. So deployment maintains replica sets basically, right? It automatically when we create a deployment kind, it automatically create your replica sets in terms in the background, right?
Correct.
So if we already have let's say I've created my replica set, not deployment, kind replica set, and maintain a 4 replicas of Nginx web server, let's say. Now we can do a manually upscale, or all those kind of thing can be done through replica set. We don't need a deployment, right? So but I'm just trying to think into which scenario we have to use kind deployment and which scenario we can use replica set. I mean, what is the use case? I mean, you understand what I'm saying?
Okay, so you are saying that why people use only replica set, right? That is the case.
Yeah, why we need to why the deployment is required? Why?
No, deployment is a kind in which replica sets are there, and which will inform to the replica sets internally. I'll tell you what is
okay.
What is the thing.
But we can have replica set also, right? I mean, when we have a maintained to 4 replicas at desired state, we can work, right?
See here now. This is a deployment called as orange, and deployment is there, right? So now see a kubectl get rs. There will be 2 replica sets, right? Now orange has 2 replica sets here. Now see, this one is there and this one is there. Now deployment 1 and deployment, these are the 2 replica sets for the deployment. There are 2 replica sets for this one. What will happen if I delete the replica set now?
I'm sorry. So I'm a little bit confused. Replica set. Okay, when we are taking get replica set, so deployment 1 is the name of deployment or replica set?
This is the name of the replica set completely.
Okay.
It gets
and can you run the command called kubectl get deployment before deleting?
This is the command.
Okay, so deployment is the deployment name, and deployment 1 has 2 replica sets.
Right now it has 2 replica sets. It has
And
a
orange deployment has 2 replica set.
Right, correct. Because we have modified it.
So that means deployment can control multiple replica set.
Yes. That is what I want to show now. That what will happen if I delete the 2 replica sets, both replica sets here. Let me just open it also. Now this is running here. All the 8 pods are running, 4 pods are running of the orange, and I'm going to delete it.
One thing, Ramesh, to add on to this, I know it's a small question, but replica sets and scaling, is there any difference between the two, or is it just the same?
So sorry, I was just thinking differently. Can you just come ask the question again?
Yeah, in the same context, replica sets and versus the scaling, is it just the same or is it different, and how?
No, replica set is used to scale up and scale down. So when I fire this command kubectl scale deployment, and I want to scale up the orange deployment, and I want to create now 10 replicas. Who will maintain these replicas? This is a replica set. So 10's desired states are okay. Now we are saying that I want 10 replicas. So now if you get the replica set, you see here the count is increased. Okay. Now henceforth, if something goes wrong with any pod inside this deployment, replica set will recreate that. So that is the reason I deleted this one. I hope that you understand this, guys. If I delete this kubectl delete replica sets, which replica set is there? Only one replica set is there, orange, right? If I delete this one, it will delete the replica set as well as it will delete the pods. Look at this. But it started creating again. So who has created the replica set now?
Deployment.
Replica deployment, and that's why deployment is required.
Yep.
So in that case, I just trying to understand that replica set supports rolling update or not. Let's say you have 4 replicas and I want to change the version, or maybe Nginx version or something. And now I need to go for the higher version. Will that going to impact, or downtime will be there if I just have a replica set, no deployment?
That will not be done by using a replica set. You have to have the deployment for that.
Okay, so deployment is required for rolling update.
Yes.
Sorry, Ramesh, can we have only replica set without deployment? I think this is what Vivek is questioning
Right.
around.
That is what I am saying, to control the replica. If you just create a replica set, and then there is no parent for this one. Right?
Okay, it will be
So if
created on its
something
own, but there's no one to control it then.
No one to control it. That is what I'm trying to answer.
All right. Yeah.
I hope that Vivek, you got it now, right?
Yes, that is good. Thank you for clarification, Anuj. One more thing is that I think the lady asked about the same context. Scaling and replica set, right? I know that replica set is required to maintain the desired number of pods, right? But it is not auto scaling. It is not like something load is increasing and it's going to add one more pod automatically. No. HPA, you told me that horizontal pod scaling is the thing which which is required for auto scaling, right? That's a
Right.
different thing.
That is
I'm not saying
different.
that you need to educate writer, but I just need to understand the replica set is not some kind of auto scaling. It is scale up, scale down is possible, but manually it can be possible, but not automatic.
Right. Automatic, it is possible in case you use this HPA, and we are going to hit that topic now. This is deployment auto scaling using HPA.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys, I hope that you understood the concept of strategy. And is deployment clear now to everyone? What is deployment? It is a kind which is help you to deploy the multiple pods. You can modify that pods using a deployment kind. You can change the image if you want to change. If you want to scale up, you can scale up. If you want to scale down, you can scale down. That's the beauty of it. Self-healing mechanism is because of the deployment kind, guys. Right?
So
High availability.
one thing more, if we have a replica set created manually, and now we are creating a deployment, but deployment is automatically in turns creating a replica set, right?
Right.
Is it not possible to add a manual created replica set into that deployment, or is it something we need to go with again the same? I mean, how can we add existing resources, or is it something we can do that?
We can do that one. We can do that. Yeah, I understood that. I will do one exercise on that one, guys. Don't worry. I will try to see that I create a replica set and try to add that into deployment.
Is this a similar question as cluster type can have your node type? I mean, if it's already existing, can we just reuse that rather than getting the new one created, right, Vivek?
Right. No, see,
That
what
is
he's
what I
saying.
was thinking.
Yeah, and there
No,
should
no,
be.
no.
I think there should be a way to tweak it. I don't know. I've not tried it, but yeah, Ramesh, it would be great if you can help
Yeah,
us.
I will definitely help you to do that one, guys. This is an interesting question, Vivek. Thank you very much for asking that question. Can we
One
accommodate
question I have
because
on
what he's trying to
replica.
say, what he's trying to say that can we create an independent replica set without any deployment and that add that into the deployment? That is what his question is. Right, Vivek?
Yes, sir.
Ramesh, I have a question on replica. So can
Yeah.
you do this edit deployment and change the replica? And so how is the different than your scaling out, scaling in, and my edit deployment?
No, that is
How
one of the
is
way
it?
to do it. This is another way to do it. That's it, nothing else. You want to change me orange one? Replicas,
Yeah,
how many are there?
anything you can have. Just a number of replica. You can just change it and it should change automatically. Yeah.
So let me make it one. Yeah, that is also happening.
And moreover, if you want to change the strategy also, you can do that. I mean,
yes. Yeah, it is similar. Either you change in the YAML file or you change in the edit the deployment, existing deployment.
Ramesh, have you earlier created a
Which one is the
replica
best
set on?
practice?
Change in the YAML
Which
file.
one is the best practices?
Change in the YAML file.
Ramesh, have you created a replica set before without deployment?
No, I have not created.
Not right. Okay. Thank you.
I will be showing in the next session now that.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Now see, this is done. I think. Yeah, tell me, guys. Now I think time is up. Now you can ask me the question, and we'll close the session because it is already.
Yeah, just a small question, Ramesh. If I have missed it, how come it is the replica set is showing two deployment one?
Here, na, because we modified na that there are two sets we created. So first set was now having a zero desired status because there was earlier image was different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is your revision one.
Okay. Can I revert to that state? Like, suppose
Yes,
if
we
my
can.
deployment goes wrong.
Yes, we can do that. We can. So if
How
you
can
see
we do
that
that?
kubectl rollout status of deployment. No, that topic is there. I will show you that in detail, but I'll just show you that how we can find it. Deployment. What is the name of deployment? Deployment one. Rollout status. I want to see the history. So there are two revisions now, 1 and 2. So deployment, this one deployment is having, this is the first revision, and this is the second revision, this one. So the number of revisions, if you have 4 revisions here, there will be 4 replica sets.
What is revision?
Now that is what I want to explain in the, I have that topic
So
actually.
Ramesh,
So
I have a request, okay, to everyone, okay. Please don't ask questions, okay, which you are going to study in the upcoming sessions, because it is really creating a lot of confusion.
Right.
So
The problem was that, yeah, the question, sometime question that there is a possibility that some of them are not knowing that whether they are going to come in the next session also or not. That is also one of the thing. So guys, don't worry about it. I will be covering it, and as you said that you need to take care of that as well. Do not ask the questions of the upcoming
One
topics.
last question, Ramesh, here. Can you paste the history of commands and secondly the YAML file deployment one.yaml?
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
So yeah, sure, I will do
991
that.
was the line number. 991 was the last line number you pasted.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for helping me with that.
Ramesh, feel free to park the questions which we'll be covering in the next sessions, so we don't spend much time on those and rather try to cover the topic for the day.
Yeah, sure. That is what now I am
Yeah, that's
trying
a good
to.
point.
Yeah, just park them. I mean, the question what Vivek is asking, all the valid question. I got confused. Can we really create replica set without deployment? And then that
Yeah,
triggered, yes, we
because that
can.
is
Just
something
park them
even
aside.
I got confused,
Yeah, just
because
park
we
them
have never,
aside.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have never created a replica set without deployment. So that is something
Yeah.
new for us.
Yeah,
Okay,
good Vivek for letting us know. But yeah, just park these questions aside. We can, cover them as and when
thank
it
you
comes.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
No problem.
and I think Ramesh, you have a good point because we don't know the I know the topics which we are going to cover this session, but sometimes we are asking question out of the way, maybe just for curiosity purpose because we are learning. And if it's up to you that you want to answer that question now, or you can say that okay, this topic will cover into next, this kind of things which we cover in the next topic because that will come to that, it correlates
Yeah,
that. So it's up to you.
yeah, sure. I know that, guys. I think 2 more sessions there you will be asking me a lot of questions. I'm damn sure about it. But slowly, once you start learning about the fundamentals clearly, then other things are just for the understanding purpose. So the latter one we will not spend much time, because rather that you have all clarity of the fundamentals. The next topics will be really smooth topics for everyone. So I am okay with this
Right.
one, that's fine. But the important thing is that make sure that everybody understands it. Don't assume
Correct,
anything.
correct.
If you have a doubt,
Right. It's a healthy discussion. I think it's a healthy discussion. I think we are learning together as a team. And definitely the concepts are more important than learning a YAML file, because YAML file we can get from Kubernetes.io or anywhere, right? I mean, and that's not a big issue. The only thing concept has to be clear.
absolutely correct, Vivek. That is fantastic. I am, that is good that everybody is discussing in a healthy way. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah,
Ramesh, could you
Ramesh,
please
just to add, just go on,
is
Siddharth.
the
Yeah.
that you've
Yes.
created?
Yeah, one second. I'll give that one
Yeah,
to you.
so it is helpful. We can learn what we understand. We can what we learn.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Ramesh, just to add one question, is anyone maintaining the questions they were not answered previously just because it will be coming in the next sessions, or it is completely with the participants individually? Because I've got a couple of questions they were not answered previously, and the reason was, you'll be covering them in the next sessions.
Right. I know that one, Anuj. There is one question that I need to answer. I
All right.
remember that. It is there. Piyush is maintaining
Okay.
that one. But in
Perfect.
case, see guys, in case we are not able to answer your question, don't feel to re-question it. There is no problem.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I'm always with you guys.
Yes.
So
Hello.
ask me the questions which I don't know the answers of it. I will go
Sorry,
back, I will
Ramesh.
revisit and
Sorry, Ramesh.
yeah.
Earlier, I think you can't hear me now. if you have any question, anyone, if you have any question and which is not answered here, so you can just drop a mail to the support@k21academy.com, and I will share your question with the Ramesh, or I will try to answer myself that question. So we will
Yes,
not
yes.
left any question unanswered. So no need to worry about that. So you can share your question on the support, that will create a ticket for you and for us, and so we can keep track on the tickets, so we have not answered or answered that question. So
So,
if you have any question which is not
Piyush, that is really
answered,
good information. But the questions I think Anuj asked is that he's saying that couple of questions left on the chat. So I'm sure that
yes,
you are noting down all those questions, and maybe when you start with, Ramesh can always start with the leftover question first. I believe that might be.
yes, on
Have I
previous
left out?
session I already answered all the question from the date, and also already uploaded on the portal after the recording, maybe, or in the deployment modules in pre-recorded videos, we already uploaded that questions.
1 second, guys.
Piyush,
Have we missed some questions today from the chat?
no.
Anybody's question?
I think no, Ramesh, you answered all the question.
No, yeah. So it's just
Yeah.
a question to Piyush
Actually,
and Ramesh. Like actually, in the starting, I've asked one question regarding customizing of HCD. Like if you want to design it, so I think if it will be very good, like if that question can be recorded, maybe in a later at the end of the session you can take it. But I think that is a question which it means architects should know.
I think we have a etcd, how to take the backup of the etcd and everything in one
It's not
cluster
about
maintenance.
backup, Ramesh. Actually, if somebody says like if the customer or principal architect asks me a question like uh, if you want to customize your HCD, if they are saying that no, the HCD should be SQL, MariaDB, something like that, and how to go about it.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. I definitely will record this question. Not an issue.
That's
Yes,
interesting.
please.
okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Ramesh, what will happen to the node port if we stop the service? It will retain the original port which got allocated first time.
Service, if you say that if you delete that service, right?
If I stop, or if I stop, it will it
No.
retain, or whenever?
If you start the deployment, okay, all the pods, okay, not you cannot stop the deployment and start the deployment. You can pause it and unpause it. Otherwise, you have to delete it. But if you stop the pods, nothing is going to impact on the service. But if you delete the
So,
service and you recreate it, okay, by using a declarative, by using a command line, then it will not use the same. It may use the different ports, but that is why we have to use a declarative way, right? You have to write in the YAML files and fix the port, so that if anything goes wrong with the service, you can you can recreate the same port for the service by using the YAML files.
okay, and just a small. Actually, I was trying to pull a local repository image, which is already pulled by Docker. Okay, and I just wanted to pull that image in my YAML, but I tried multiple times, but it is not possible. Is it possible? And if possible, can you just create a small YAML just for the
No,
sake of example?
you can type into the strategy or do not pull image in case it is available. That option is there. That we can do it.
No, but actually the tag name it is not taking the tag name itself. That is the problem. I tried that way also.
Okay. Just send this question. Let me check out what is that question. Okay. Can you raise a ticket for this one? I will check it.
Okay, I'll send it on email then. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
Ramesh, I think one last question on the chat window by Vipasha. So can you pick that? It's on
Okay.
chat
Sorry.
window. Like last I shared also, unless the until deployment itself is deleted.
No, but where is that question? I'm not getting the question.
I
Can you
shared
just
on the in the last. I shared that question in the last.
okay. So unless and until deployment itself is deleted, replica set will not be deleted. No, if you want to do, yeah, it will recreate if somebody deletes it. The answer of that question is if somebody tries to delete it, it will get automatically recreated.
Yes,
Otherwise,
Yeah, so if we keep on deleting replica set, just because they are defined in the deployment, they'll be recreating, right? So
Right.
now if we want to, delete the replica set, I mean, completely, we don't want it to recreate. So we need to make the changes in deployment, or we need to delete the deployment itself.
We need to delete the deployment itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
cannot recreate it. We cannot just keep the deployment and delete the replica sets. So if you, even though if you make if you, the only one thing is that you can scale down to the 0, okay, but then still there will be replica set which will be maintaining desired state is equal to 0. So there is only one way that you need to delete it.
Okay.
Ramesh, this is Vivek.
Yeah, Vivek.
I know this is just a CK, means maybe administrator course, right? I understand maybe, but I'm just because I'm a little bit more in architecture way to design the solution in Kubernetes world, in microservices, how in production workload as a best practices, how, just like in, if I'm an AWS guy, right? Let's say, so we have a VPC, we have public subnet, private subnet, and these kind of deployment services, replica set, and that kind of scenario or some kind of network diagram of microservices with taking a real-time example of a three-tier architecture, that might be going to be give us a bird's eye view to understand this better way. I know that right now we are understanding one component at a one time. Once we understand all the components together, then how we can fit this all components of Kubernetes into real world architecture diagram. That will be definitely going to be a plus point for us later on.
Yeah, there is one topic called as application stack, deploying the application stack. So there is one database and front end we'll be deploying, and we'll be using it to deploy that one. There is
Yeah,
one application stack is there. Yeah.
cool. Ramesh, just to add, I think if you can share some sort of case studies, like, in AWS, if you go there, there are case studies, this company is using AWS this way, and those are the sort of best practices. If you can just delegate us few links, if you are aware of such things, that will also be useful.
Yeah, sure. I will try to do that one. Yeah,
Thanks.
this
Yeah.
is a good thing. You can please note down. Piyush, just keep a track of this one. I will just take it in the next week.
Ramesh, this blue, green, and canary you'll be taking later, or
I will be taking in the ingress controller topic.
Okay.
Actual
The role.
deployment I will show there, because I want to. It requires multiple services and a lot of things are there. So I will be taking there that time. Right now, if I take it, it will be a lot of confusion will be there. So let's go one by one. Yeah.
So yeah, so just add to on Vivek question. Yeah, like it was a good question to be asked. Like, because normally what is happening is, like, if you're migrating or you are doing a new architecture designing, means what the stakeholder or the customer, they will give just a one-liner, okay, that they want to implement a Kubernetes, and this is what it is. So given a like as an architect, like how we are going to design it, like it might be that particular person, maybe like I'm coming from some other background and I'm learning this native course, but somehow means I may not be comfortable with AWS, where all VPC thing will come to
See,
the.
I'll tell you one thing, Vivek. I will tell you one thing. See, this is just a containerization world, right? The basics remain same. The way you were doing it in the virtualization, or the way were doing on the bare metal machines, okay, the approach was different, but the questions were same. Customer will never understand what is a virtual machine. Customer will never understand what is container. Customer will never understand what is bare metal machine. Now what is the role of the architect? Or I know everybody understands that, but thing is that we have to ask them a fundamental questions, and then we have to sit together and create one nice architecture, and then give the back. Then you can explain to the project team or your customer. So that is the way it is. The only point is that, are we all comfortable with the fundamentals? Do you know what questions we should ask to the customers? So that is one thing I always find in my 20 years of IT career. I always focused on that stuff. And that is what I want to, that is Abhiram was asking. So I'm creating a document for you guys. What basic questions should we ask to the customers to find out the right approach or right framework or right architecture for that application. So hold on for some time. Definitely we'll
No,
get
no,
back.
that's good. Do we
No, it's,
have any?
you are ready to hold it. Just like
Yes, yes, that's a good.
yeah.
Go ahead, Vivek or somebody else. I have no
Oh,
problem.
Ramesh was talking. I interrupted. Sorry, Ramesh. Go ahead.
No,
So
no,
that's
means
it.
like I just wanted to say, means like yeah, means Abhiram has asked in the startup. So just wanted to add things because like I'm sorry to means like broadcast in this session because there might be people like who are not up to that level. Maybe they might be developer or from infra team. But yeah, means going forward because there are mixed crowd in this session. So just wanted to have a discussion because like since you told that you have worked on this Kubernetes and you have experience of 18 years, there might be some scenario or means like you might have spent
No,
a lot
I
of.
was in IT industry 20 years. That the lifetime of the Kubernetes is not 20 years till now.
No,
It
no,
is
means like see, Ramesh, it's not like about lifetime. See, even like since if you have worked on Kubernetes, you might have followed some architect, like how we in an application development.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
understand the architect. Okay, this is how the flow is. So if somebody asks us, then we can explain the architect. Okay,
sure.
development syntax is different
Yes.
thing. But yeah,
Yeah, I think Ramesh
Yeah,
Prajapati has a good point. Maybe Ramesh, if you can schedule an offline session, one session just only for the architecture, maybe a little bit of out of the track, because this may be not good for all the audience, right? And
I will
maybe
just
we are.
suggest one thing, you guys. I will suggest
One
one
second,
thing.
Ramesh and Vivek. I think
Hello, guys. I'll just final 2 minutes of session discussion and we'll close this one. Now I
yes.
have an exercise for all the solution architects. Okay. You need to create. You need to think about that one project is coming to you to the customer. Now you have understood something. So what should be the questions you will ask to the customer? Can you please create one list and send it to the Piyush, and Piyush send it to me. Is that clear? One customer is there, he's coming to you and he started asking you the question, or he want to work with you and they want to deploy the Kubernetes architecture along with you. So what will be the questions you will be asking at the preliminary level now? So please try to create a questionnaire list and send it to Piyush. Is that okay?
that's a good exercise. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Please do that one.
Yes,
Then we'll
that's a good
combine
start.
one. Yeah, and then we'll combine that questions, and if required, we'll discuss with Piyush and Atul, and we will take a time from them. And if they allow us, we'll definitely have a session on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Now let's stop for the day because now it is late, guys. Thank you. Take care, guys. Bye.
Ramesh, last but not least, thank you so much.
Thank you, Anuj.
Really appreciate dealing with
Yeah, thank you
50
guys.
plus odd people, responding to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you all, right? Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.